the ice and fire demon god of Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376 Scrimgeour's Doubts, Irina under the curse. While Scrimgeour was in a daze, old Barty stepped forward and said in a low voice, "Aura office, action begins." Old Barty's words awakened Scrimgeour and the Auras, who were in disbelief at Voldemort's resurrection. Scrimgeour was not dissatisfied with old Barty's actions of giving orders on his behalf. Instead, he nodded vigorously and said, "Yes, action. In addition, protect those students of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." Those Auras hurriedly raised their wands and rushed to the battlefield in front. In an instant, all kinds of spells flew towards the Death Eaters' camp. The Death Eaters, who were struggling to resist, suddenly showed a trend of being defeated. They kept retreating and could only release defensive spells such as Iron Armor Charm and Universal Protection Charm to resist the attacks of Irina, Irving and the Auras. The 4 or 5 reporters from the Daily Prophet instinctively raised their magic cameras to record everything that happened here. They understood that any scene that happened here would become the hottest front page news of the Daily Prophet. As for whether the Ministry of Magic would suppress this incident and prevent the things here from being exposed, it would depend on the game between the higher-ups and the Ministry of Magic. Their only duty was to record everything here truthfully. At this time, Scrimgeour came to Dumbledore quickly. He looked at Dumbledore, who was still raking the two of them and did not take the initiative to attack, and asked, "Dumbledore, I need an explanation. Why are you here with several students from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry? Why don't you take action? I think you have the ability to suppress these Death Eaters." Dumbledore glanced at Scrimgeour, and he replied softly, "Doesn't your Minister Fudge often think that I'm old? Yes, the future of the magic world does not belong to me, but to them." As he said, Dumbledore pointed to Lin, Irina and Irving not far away. Dumbledore continued, "Only when they have the ability to carry the banner will there be hope for the future of the wizarding world. Yes, I can suppress these Death Eaters now, but what about in the future?" Hearing this, Scrimgeour was silent, but soon, he pointed at Lin, who was fighting Voldemort in the air, and asked, "What about him? You know how powerful the you-know-who is. Even the Auras in the entire Aura office plus me are no match for the you-know-who. And you, Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, you let a student face such a terrible existence as the you-know-who. Dumbledore, do you want your student to die? You know he can't be a match for the you-know-who." Scrimgeour asked loudly. Dumbledore just shook his head gently and said, "No, that was his own choice." Scrimgeour widened his eyes and asked in disbelief, "Are you trying to tell me that it was that student who wanted to deal with the mysterious man alone?" Dumbledore said frankly, "Yes, that's right, and I also advise you not to get involved in the fight between them. It will ruin Lin's path. Moreover, with your level of magic, you may not lose many people in the British wizarding world, but you can only be cannon fodder in front of them." Scrimgeour laughed angrily. "You mean, am I, the director of the Aura office, not as good as a student?" Dumbledore smiled and said, "You should still remember the student who fought off more than 20 Auras on the night of the Quidditch World Cup." Hearing this, Scrimgeour was stunned. He looked at Lin in the air in disbelief and asked, "Is he that student?" Dumbledore nodded and said, "Exactly." Scrimgeour was finally silent. After a long time, he murmured, "Is this the future of the wizarding world?" Even Dumbledore at this age couldn't fight more than 20 Auras at the same time by himself, but Lin did it. So, does this mean that Lin will be able to achieve far more achievements than Dumbledore, the chief wizard of the Wizengamot, the greatest white wizard of this century, and the chief of the International Confederation of Wizards in the future? Exclamation mark. Dumbledore smiled and said to Scrimgeour, "You should do your duty, Scrimgeour." Scrimgeour no longer hesitated. He clenched his wand and joined the battle against the Death Eaters. "Voldemort, it seems that your Death Eaters can't hold on until you kill me." Lin chuckled as he caught a glimpse of the battle in the cemetery. Voldemort, who also saw the scene in the cemetery, had a gloomy face. He didn't say much, but waved his wand fiercely. "Crucio." As Voldemort's voice fell, a dark red ray like lightning broke through the air. However, when Lin En used a white wolf transformed by transfiguration to intercept it, the Cruciatus curse was like the previous Avada lightning chain, splitting into tiny dark red lightning all over the sky, and covering the cemetery below like a raging thunderstorm. Voldemort's goal this time was the auras and Irina below. Seeing this scene, Lin En couldn't help but burst into tears. He tried his best to control the forbidden magic fire, hoping to intercept the dark red lightning all over the sky. But his forbidden magic fire was also limited. Under the flickering black and red flames in the air, less than 30% of the dark red lightning was successfully annihilated. Seeing the changes in the air, Dumbledore also took action with a serious face. A group of water waves broke through the air and turned into a huge water prison to cover the Cruciatus curse. In an instant, nearly 60% of the Cruciatus curse lightning chain was intercepted, but the remaining approximately 10% of the dark red lightning showed an ability similar to the 1000 miles tracking curse, actively bypassing the interception of the water prison curse and continuing to bombard the people below. Soon, screams continued to sound, and more than half of the 20-odd auras were hit by the dark red lightning chain. They fell to the ground and struggled under the torture of the Cruciatus curse. Looking at the dark red lightning chain attacking from the air, Irving reacted quickly and shot out a ball of thunder to counter it. In the limited time that the thunder bought for him, he rolled to avoid the attack of the dark red lightning chain. But Irina, who was focusing on freezing the Death Eaters and had her back to Lin En, was not so lucky. A split dark red lightning hit her back. Although the alchemical equipment that Lin En had refined for her resisted most of the power of the Cruciatus curse and protected her soul, this Cruciatus curse cast by the Demon King level wizard still made her look painful and sweat. Chapter 377 Go to Hell and See Satan. Irina. Seeing this scene, Lin En only felt a flame like a fierce fire burning from the bottom of his heart, which was constantly devouring his mind. That was his most beloved girl, but at this time, she was tortured by Voldemort's Cruciatus curse. Although Irina herself was not seriously injured under the protection of hundreds of alchemical equipment refined by Lin En, the painful expression on Irina's face made him feel heartbroken. Since he and Irina teamed up to kill the basilisk 2 years ago, and Irina was tortured by Tom Riddle's Cruciatus curse, Lin En was determined to improve his strength at all costs, so that he could have the capital to protect her. Even today, regardless of his own safety, he had to face Voldemort, the Demon King level wizard, just to be able to break through to the realm of the Demon King level wizard under great pressure, and to have enough power to protect the people he wanted to protect. However, he was helpless as he looked at Irina, who was hit by the lightning chain split by Voldemort's Cruciatus curse, and looked in pain. The fire that suddenly ignited from the bottom of his heart continued to expand like a prairie fire. The anger that almost turned into substance made Lin En's dark red eyes seem to turn into 2 burning flames. Voldemort! Lin En roared loudly, and the flames around him soared into the sky, and his momentum also rose steadily with the expansion of the flames. The magic power that supplied the 5 alchemical arrays, 4 different magic flames, hundreds of deformed white wolves and patron silver wolves gradually changed from the power of the Philosopher's Stone to Lin En's own power. The magic power injected into Lin En's body by the Philosopher's Stone through the authority of the demon god was getting less and less, but the magic power filled in Lin En's body was becoming more and more vigorous and powerful. Seeing the strangeness of Lin En, Voldemort's face became more and more solemn. How could he not see that Lin En's current state was very similar to his own state when he returned to the Demon King level wizard under the suppression of Dumbledore's water prison curse? Exclamation mark. Impossible. There is no underage Demon King level wizard in this world. Avada Kedavra. Voldemort murmured in disbelief. He seemed to have made up his mind. He suddenly waved his wand and a fierce look appeared on his face. He understood that he had to interrupt Lin En's rising magic power and strangle this existence that might threaten him in the cradle. A dark green beam of light as thick as an adult's thigh broke through the air. The dark green light was filled with unstable factors, which allowed it to split countless lightning chains at any time and strangle all powerful enemies with the power of thunder. However, facing the Avada lightning chain that even Dumbledore had to be extremely careful of, Lin En did not dodge or evade. He gently raised his left hand, and a ball of forbidden magic fire turned into a huge barrier, blocking Lin En. Compared with the forbidden magic fire that was not much different from ordinary flames except for the color, the forbidden magic fire that blocked Lin En now seemed to have turned into hard metal. The black and red barrier was as airtight as steel, even to the point of being opaque. Seeing this scene, Voldemort's expression changed. As a Demon King level wizard, he could naturally see that the forbidden magic fire barrier in front of Lin En had evolved from the tangible and intangible realm of magic power to the tangible and substantial realm. As mentioned earlier, in addition to living things, the only thing that can resist the killing curse is a physical object. The reason why Dumbledore was able to use the water prison curse to resist Voldemort's killing curse was because his water prison curse had reached a tangible and material state, not just a simple energy state water flow. In other words, Dumbledore's water prison can even be compared with steel. But, to make the energy state magic evolve into a tangible and material existence, that is something that only a demon level wizard can do. Thinking of this, both Voldemort and Dumbledore, who was still on the ground, were horrified. A 15-year-old demon level wizard. This is probably the youngest demon level wizard in the entire magic world. At this time, the Philosopher's Stone on Lin En's arm had stopped working, and no more magic power was injected into Lin En's body through the power of the demon god. However, everything around Lin En did not stop working, because the Philosopher's Stone stopped supplying energy, but instead flashed a more dazzling light. Originally, Lin En needed thousands of golden beams to penetrate a powerful armor spell cast by Voldemort, but now, only one golden beam is needed to break Voldemort's armor spell. Voldemort, you dirty, stinking ditch-dwelling insect. You are a noseless boiled egg with a reflective double-hole electrical socket on your head. Go to hell and meet Satan. Lin En roared, and his figure disappeared on the spot with a golden light blooming along with an alchemical array. Although Lin En has not yet learned apparition, there are many alchemical arrays that can achieve the same purpose. Before Voldemort could react, his figure had already appeared 1 meter in front of Voldemort. Endless fierce fire condensed on the black spear in Lin En's hand, and the power of the forbidden magic fire also climbed to the level of the Demon King. Even Voldemort, a Demon King level wizard, felt that his magic power was greatly suppressed at this moment. Armor protection. Voldemort waved his wand with difficulty. Under the suppression of the forbidden magic power that reached the level of the Demon King, even for a Demon King level wizard like him, waving his wand to release a powerful armor charm was particularly difficult. Lin En ignored the blue barrier that had transformed into a substance in front of Voldemort. He stabbed out the black spear in his hand with all his strength. The fiendish fire, magical fire, gobbler fairy fire, and forbidden magic fire alternately burned on the tip of the black spear, stabbing towards Voldemort's chest with unstoppable force. At the moment, when the tip of the black spear touched the blue barrier, the black and red light of the forbidden magic fire shone brightly. Although the powerful forbidden magic power could not directly annihilate this powerful armor charm, it concentrated the power of the forbidden magic at one point, breaking through the surface with a point, and pierced a small hole with a diameter of 5 inches in the center of the blue barrier. The pitch black spear penetrated the hole without any hindrance. The golden gobbler-right fairy fire and the red-black fiendish fire shone brilliantly, turning into a huge force that spitted out a spear light from the tip of the pitch black spear. Puff. With the sound of flesh and blood being broken, the pitch black spear that Lin En held tightly pierced Voldemort's chest. Lin En suddenly lifted the pitch black spear in his hand upwards, and Voldemort's body was lifted up by Lin En without resistance. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378. You seem to be trapped in the Dark Lord's game of ruling the world. Voldemort grabbed the black spear that pierced his chest. He struggled desperately, and his mouth uttered a voice mixed with anger and pain. How dare you insult the great Dark Lord like this? Hearing this, Lin sneered, and he suddenly pulled out the black spear that pierced Voldemort's chest and swept it out, slashing towards Voldemort's throat. Dark Lord? Haha, the title of Dark Lord is outdated, you know, Tom. Voldemort's whole body was pushed back by a sudden rise of black smoke, avoiding the throat-cutting shot, but Lin rushed forward, and the black spear in his hand stabbed straight out, heading straight for Voldemort's right eye. Smart people are thinking about how to whitewash themselves, being controlled by the Imperious curse, making money transactions, and trying their best to get rid of the identity of Death Eaters. Lin said in a cold tone, and the shot he stabbed was dodged by Voldemort again. Hearing Lin's words, several of the Death Eaters who were fighting with the auras in the cemetery stopped their actions and looked up. Their eyes under the masks showed complicated expressions. Among these Death Eaters, there was a guy with long platinum hair. Lin did not stop his attack. He seemed to have given up the primitive tactics of 1-2 wave, but held the wand in one hand and the black spear in the other. A sharp shadow shot out from his wand, and the black spear followed closely, pointing from bottom to top. Lin's cold voice came again. Only you, Tom Riddle, a product of the love potion of wizards and muggles, a puppet without emotions, seems to be really used by those extreme pureblood families, and trapped in this game of the Dark Lord ruling the world. Hearing Lin's words, there was an uproar in the cemetery, whether it was the Death Eaters or the Auras, and the 4 or 5 reporters from the Daily Prophet recorded this scene with flushed faces. The Death Eaters who had stopped earlier and tried to clear their identities, waved their wands, and disappeared with a tangled look on their faces. In an instant, there were only less than 30 Death Eaters left, out of the dozens. Voldemort's face was gloomy. Whether it was the name Tom Riddle, or his life as a product of aphrodisiac, they were all past events that he could not bear to look back on. He thought that these past events would be buried in the long river of time as time passed, but now, Lin has exposed all of them nakedly, and exposed them to the world. But don't be sad, Tom Riddle, this is not your problem, it's just that your era has passed more than 10 years ago. Lin said with a chuckle, and the coldness in his tone turned into contempt. He looked down at Voldemort who was constantly retreating under his crazy attack, as if he was looking at some poor reptile. Feeling the contemptuous gaze from a person who was not yet an adult, Voldemort felt only endless humiliation. Even the humiliation of being beaten by Dumbledore before was far less than the humiliation at this moment. I said, enough. Endless magic power burst out from Voldemort's body. The sudden explosion actually forced Lin En to retreat dozens of steps. Voldemort roared loudly, and his scalded eyes were full of blood. It seemed that something was burning in Voldemort's body, and it seemed to be Voldemort's life. However, Voldemort no longer cared about these losses. He didn't think he could fall to any lower level. Death. He had seen it before. With those Horcruxes, he was already in immortal existence. Even if his life was burned out, what would it matter? Exclamation mark. He could still be resurrected, and he still had countless opportunities to be resurrected. And those stupid guys, idiots who could not defeat death, only had one chance that could never be recovered. Voldemort's momentum rose again, and the huge magic fluctuations even forced Lin En, who was also a Demon King level wizard, to retreat. Lin En looked at Voldemort in the distance with a mocking look. This method of burning his potential in advance might allow the opponent to gain the upper hand in a short time, but it would consume the opponent's future. But Voldemort seemed to have no future, right? Exclamation mark. It's just a fight of will. You can't kill me, and everything you do is in vain. Lin En said with a chuckle, and he retreated backwards to avoid the killing curses that Voldemort cast in anger. Every Demon King level wizard is a unique, strategic existence, and at the same time, they are the most difficult to kill in the world. Even an old Demon King level wizard who has been a Demon King level wizard for decades or even hundreds of years can hardly kill a new combat force who has just become a Demon King level wizard for less than an hour. In a one-on-one duel, a Demon King level wizard can only be suppressed, but not killed. Therefore, all that Voldemort did by burning his own life was not to kill Lin at all, but only to suppress Lin, to gain the upper hand, and to make the reputation of Voldemort invincible no longer shaken. Isn't this exactly what Lin said about the Battle of Wills? Exclamation mark. Blood sacrifice. Dark mark. The skeleton reappears. Voldemort roared. He cut his wrist hard, and a wisp of blood flew into the air with the green light from his wand, turning into a skull with a venomous snake coming out of its mouth. Unlike the dark mark seen on the night of the Quidditch World Cup, This dark mark turned into a blood-red sky under the stain of Voldemort's blood, making the entire sky appear scarlet and dark. Under the illumination of this blood sacrifice, dark mark, the remaining 20 or so Death Eaters in the cemetery seemed to have been strengthened by some special power. Their eyes were full of blood, they laughed wildly, and waved their wands. Their magic level was actually strengthened several times in this short moment. Those ordinary Death Eaters who didn't even reach the level of ordinary auras now have magic levels that surpass elite auras, and are comparable to Bellatrix and others. Bellatrix and others, who were originally very powerful, have even risen to the level of Voldemort, who was infinitely close to the level of the Demon King level wizard. Seeing this scene, both Lin and Dumbledore looked gloomy. How could they not see that this was not an ordinary dark mark, but a forbidden spell that could strengthen the group? Exclamation mark. Under the illumination of the bloody dark mark, the Death Eaters who were originally suppressed by Irina, Irving and the auras turned the tide and sounded the horn of counterattack. On the contrary, Irina and others were defeated by the fierce attacks of those Death Eaters. Even though the three ancient magics of Ice Phantom, Purgatory Demon Golem and Thunder Magic gathered together, they were unable to resist the counterattack of the Death Eaters whose strength had skyrocketed. Chapter 379, a lot of experience, a plan that is done without anyone noticing. Seeing that Irina, Iwin and the auras were no match for the strengthened Death Eaters, Dumbledore finally took action. Dumbledore waved his wand with a serious expression, and nearly 10 water waves broke through the air, turning into a huge water prison to cover Bellatrix and others. Although Bellatrix and other Death Eaters, whose magic level was already strong, had been infinitely close to that of a Demon King level wizard, after being strengthened by Voldemort's group, their magic strength was infinitely close to that of a Demon King level wizard. But just like Voldemort was still suppressed by Dumbledore's water prison spell, before returning to the Demon King level wizard, Bellatrix and others could not escape the fate of being locked in the water prison, even if they resisted with all their strength. After these nearly 10 Death Eaters whose magic strength was infinitely close to that of a Demon King level wizard were controlled, the pressure on Irina and others was suddenly reduced a lot. However, Irina and others were still at a disadvantage under the siege of those Death Eaters. When Lin and Irina faced Antonin Dolohov, they were very alert and attacked together. Now, these nearly 20 strengthened Death Eaters are at the same level as Antonin Dolohov. It is a great thing that Irina and others can survive. After all, among the more than 20 auras who came to support, there are only 5 elite auras, including Scrimgeour himself, and the rest of the auras are nothing but cannon fodder in front of these Death Eaters who are at the level of Antonin Dolohov. Assuming that each of the 5 elite auras can stop a Death Eater, then Irina and Irving together are equivalent to fighting against more than a dozen Antonin Dolohov at the same time. Dumbledore did not attack these Death Eaters. Since Irina and Irving can still hold on without losing, it means that, no matter what the final outcome is, this battle can have a good tempering effect on the two. In the sky, Lin En looked solemnly at Voldemort, whose already scarlet eyes glowed even brighter under the illumination of the bloody dark mark in the sky. Although it was difficult to distinguish life from death after wizards reached the level of Demon King, the magic attainments and combat experience of both sides had to be taken into consideration. Voldemort's magic power more than doubled under the illumination of the bloody dark mark, and he was much more experienced than Lin En in combat, which made it difficult for Lin En to have a chance to turn defeat into victory. As it was not known how long the bloody dark mark in the sky would last, Lin En could only choose to passively defend and wait for an opportunity to counterattack. Avada Kedavra! Avada Kedavra! Avada Kedavra! Voldemort in the distance laughed wildly, waving his wand wildly, and casting killing curses in the direction of Lin En. Each of these killing spells has the effects of Avada Lightning Chain and 1000 Miles Tracking Killing Spell. After being dodged by Lin En, these dark green lights will turn into lightning chains all over the sky and track Lin En's foothold. These Avada lightning chains are too dense, so dense that, even if Lin En uses the alchemy array to constantly change his position, there will always be dark green lights very close to Lin En flying towards him. There is no other way. Lin En had to take out objects from his pocket one by one, throw them out, and use the property of the killing spell that can be blocked by objects to intercept the dark green light attacking him. The objects that Lin En threw out seemed to be not ordinary objects. After being hit by the Avada lightning chain, they did not break directly, but were bounced out, spinning at high speed, and falling to the cemetery below, and submerged in the cemetery in a cloud of mud and sand. After throwing dozens of objects, Lin En seemed to realize that this was not a good idea. He quickly waved his wand, releasing golden threads to pick up the Avada lightning chains. As mentioned before, after a wizard reaches a level of a demon king, the magic power he releases can condense into substance, which makes his golden threads enough to pick up a large number of green lights that are flying towards him. Similar to the objects that were shot down into the cemetery before, these golden threads did not dissipate after picking up the Avada lightning chains. Instead, they seemed to lose power and fell from the air into the cemetery and then disappeared into the soil in Voldemort's blind spot. Another stalemate lasted for nearly half an hour. Voldemort seemed to be unable to hold back any longer, and he roared, "Crucia!" Dark red lightning shot out, approaching Lin En at a speed several times faster than the killing curse. Seeing this, Lin En's expression darkened slightly. He suddenly waved his left hand, and a ball of energy with a milky white glow was thrown out, facing the dark red lightning that broke through the air. This strange energy ball and the dark red lightning exploded violently in the air. The dark red lightning gradually disappeared, and the magic power wrapped in the strange energy ball seemed to become dim. Instead, the milky white energy in it fell from the air, and also fell to the cemetery below. Voldemort sneered at Lin En, who looked unhappy, and said coldly, "Roll. Even if you are an alchemist, your alchemical props are limited, and my spells are endless. I want to see how long you can resist." In Voldemort's eyes, Lin En was like a donkey in the valley, who had run out of tricks. He could only use the alchemical creations at the bottom of the box to resist his attack. However, he did not seem to notice that both the previous alchemical creations and the golden threads, after being shot down by his Avada lightning chain, fell into the cemetery along a specific trajectory. Even the last milky white energy ball fell right in the center of the cemetery. All this was done in Voldemort's blind spot, and Voldemort's attention was focused on Lin on the opposite side, and he would not review the changes that had taken place in the cemetery. This made Lin's actions invisible to the naked eye. Just when Voldemort was triumphant and thought he had won, Lin's counterattack began. Lin no longer dodged the Avada lightning chain shot by Voldemort, but controlled the alchemical array integrated into the wizard robe, and in an instant, he drove his body to appear behind Voldemort on the right. Lin suddenly stabbed the black spear in his hand into Voldemort's back. Voldemort naturally sensed Lin En, who appeared behind him. Lin En, who had the power of a demon king and did not conceal his aura at all, was as dazzling as the bright sun in the dark night, which made Voldemort easily sense Lin En's location. Immature. Voldemort chuckled, and his figure flashed, and he appeared 5 meters away with an apparition. But what Voldemort did not expect was that Lin En had already retracted his power half a second before he apparated, and turned the gun head to stab the landing point of his apparition. And his apparition was as if he was deliberately trying to catch Lin En's stab. Chapter 380. 413th time loop occurs. Honor yourself, Tom Riddle. How is it possible? Voldemort lowered his head and looked at the pitch black spear that pierced his abdomen in disbelief. His scalded eyes were full of disbelief. He didn't understand how Lin En knew that he was going to apparate and guessed his destination half a second before he apparate. Even he, a master of legilimency, couldn't do this. Voldemort shook his body again and disappeared on the spot. Although being pierced by the pitch black spear was a very fatal thing for most wizards who wanted to apparate, and there were enemy weapons stuck in his body, forcing apparate in this case could be said to be 100% likely to cause the phenomenon of separation. But in front of Voldemort, a Demon King level wizard, the precise control of magic power allowed him to judge every part of his body very well, which allowed him to successfully break away from Lin En's pitch black spear and apparate out safely. God's sword has no shadow. However, Lin En seemed to have anticipated Voldemort's idea. He raised his right hand holding the magic wand, and an invisible sword broke through the air and landed directly on Voldemort's chest, which was more than 20 meters away. Voldemort looked at the blood flower that suddenly bloomed on his chest with a dull expression. The smell of blood spread. Smelling the blood from himself, Voldemort's arrogant expression disappeared. This is impossible. Voldemort looked crazy, and he roared loudly, "No one can see through the thoughts of the great Voldemort, and no one can predict where I will end up." Hearing this, Lin En just chuckled. Lin En said lightly, "Yes, I can't predict everything you do, but what if the same scene has happened hundreds of times in front of me?" Hearing Lin En's words, not only Voldemort, but also Dumbledore, Irina and Irving below, subconsciously stopped their actions. Voldemort and Dumbledore looked at Lin En with almost horrified eyes. As a Demon King level wizard, they knew too well how incredible this ability was, especially when this ability could be equally used on Demon King level wizards. At this time, the collection of combat data has been almost completed. It's a pity that the formation can only be maintained for a limited time, otherwise I really want to try to find a way to kill a Demon King level wizard, Lin En said with a chuckle. He waved his wand again, and 3 consecutive shots were fired at a distance of 100 meters behind him in an instant. And that happened to be the landing point of Voldemort's apparition again. Voldemort waved his wand in shock, forcibly blocking the 3 invisible powers. He roared, "Impossible, you can't control the power of time." Lin En ignored Voldemort's noise. His gestures were as elegant as the conductor of an orchestra. He whispered, "Do you know how many times you have said the same words? Haha, just now it was the 413th time. In other words, the battle between us and even the conversation just now have happened 413 times. A full 413 grains of sand in time, just to find a way to completely defeat you. Feel honored for this, Tom Riddle." As Lin En's voice fell, hundreds of golden beams burst out from the alchemical array that was refined in an instant. Voldemort's face still had that trace of fear, but facing the golden beams that broke through the air, he still chose to retreat first. Voldemort performed countless completely concealed apparitions, but every time Voldemort appeared in a place, dozens of beams would be sent out half a second or even several seconds in advance, bombarding him the moment his figure appeared. After Voldemort apparated hundreds of times, his body was already covered with scars. With a full 1-hour cycle, even a teenage wizard can find a way to escape from the formation, but you, who are immersed in the battle with me, have not been able to discover that this cemetery itself has become a time-looping formation even after 413 cycles. Okay, my partners, my comrades in arms, accept this memory that belongs to you. Use this power from your own and defeat the enemy in front of you." Lin laughed loudly, and as he waved his wand, a strange power descended on Dumbledore, Irina, Irving, Scrimger, Old Barty, Sirius Black, and the more than 20 auras. The next moment, everyone felt a familiar memory suddenly flood into their minds. These memories were all about their battles with the Death Eaters in these 413 cycles. The 413 time cycles made them clearly know what the Death Eaters in front of them were doing the next second, and they also waved their wands to make countermeasures in advance, as if it was muscle memory. In an instant, the whole battle situation was reversed. Maybe your magic level is stronger than mine, but if I know every step of your action and what you are going to do next, then how should you deal with it? Exclamation mark. With the help of the memory of 413 time cycles, even an ordinary aura has the ability to fight a Death Eater who has the magic level equivalent to Antonin Dolohov. The icy power in Irina's body was rapidly mobilized, and her figure was also flying through the Death Eater's camp at a speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye. With the help of the memory of 413 cycles, she knew the flight trajectory of any spell in the battlefield, which made her not worry about being hit by an unknown sneak attack. Irina pierced the bodies of the Death Eaters one by one with an ice crystal spear, and these Death Eaters whose bodies were pierced by her at high speed were all turned into ice sculptures, and then they were shattered by the auras who followed closely. And Iwin was also waving the magic wand in his hand, and the lightning bolts were able to accurately strike the foreheads of those Death Eaters. No matter how those Death Eaters dodge or predict the direction of the lightning bolts, Iwin can also predict their predictions, so that his lightning bolts can accurately kill the target. One cycle of this time loop formation is 1 hour, which means that within this hour, they can have this ability of foresight. And 1 hour is definitely enough time to decide the winner in a wizard war involving less than 100 people. Chapter 381 Irina and Scrimger's dispute. Voldemort dodged Lin's attacks again and again with a gloomy face. He knew that he had already lost, since he failed to stop Lin from setting up the time loop array like a dragnet. Even though he had several times more power than Lin under the illumination of the bloody dark mark, his attacks could not work on Lin at all when all his actions were known by the other party. Voldemort finally figured out that the objects that Lin had knocked to the ground by his killing curse were not defensive or chemical equipment at all, but all chemical materials used to enhance the effect of the time loop array. The golden threads that Lin had wielded but were knocked down by his killing curse were not just energy threads used to resist the killing curse, but also formed the pattern of the entire time loop array. For a whole half hour of stalemate, Lin was actually resisting his attacks, while cleverly controlling the golden threads that he had knocked down, interweaving them into a complete time loop array. As for the last strange energy ball with milky white light that he shot down, Voldemort knew without guessing that it was the sand of time that powered the time loop array. In this game set against him, this 15-year-old little Demon King level wizard really had a plan. Voldemort gnashed his teeth and looked down at the Death Eaters who were beaten back by Irina and others, and Bellatrix and others who were controlled by Dumbledore's water prison spell. If he didn't leave with these Death Eaters, then even if he, as a Demon King level wizard, could leave alive, he would probably become a lonely man. Thinking of this, Voldemort was unwilling to continue to entangle with Lin En. He jumped into a ball of black smoke and swept towards the bottom, intending to leave with those Death Eaters. However, in these 413 cycles, Lin En had already seen through all of Voldemort's moves. Before Voldemort could get close to the Death Eaters below, a group of forbidden magic fires that turned into a barrier of tens of meters high blocked the black smoke that Voldemort had transformed into, forcibly intercepting it. Since one cycle of this time loop formation is 1 hour, it means that Lin En has the confidence to at least delay Voldemort for an hour, and how many Death Eaters Irina and the others can kill in this hour depends on their strength. Voldemort wanted to turn into black smoke and escape with the Death Eaters, but was intercepted by Lin En again and again. Helplessly, Voldemort transformed into a human form again, and his scalded eyes were full of hatred. After confirming that he could not leave within this hour, Voldemort no longer tried to escape. He waved his wand and released Avada Kedavra curses again and again, confronting Lin En. Below, under the relentless pursuit of Irina and others, the Death Eaters who had already become a pile of loose sand soon became few in number. Except for 4 Death Eaters who voluntarily dropped their wands and surrendered to the auras, the rest of the Death Eaters were killed by Irina and Irving. After killing or capturing these Death Eaters, Irina and Irving turned their attention to Bellatrix and others who were controlled by Dumbledore's water prison curse. Mr. Scrimger, can you please take those auras with you? I think these auras are no match for those Death Eaters. Irina turned around and looked at Scrimger who was fighting with the auras, and she said softly. Hearing this, Scrimger frowned and said, aren't those Death Eaters already under the control of Dumbledore? Why not just throw them into Azkaban prison? Scrimger also recognized that Irina was the little wizard who single-handedly killed more than 20 Death Eaters on the night of the Quidditch World Cup. This made him willing to patiently respond to the request of this little witch who was still a student. Irina chuckled and said, Dumbledore should have told you that this battle is of great significance to Irving and me in honing our combat capabilities. Besides, if they can break out of prison once, they can do it twice or even more times. Don't you think that killing them completely would be much easier than locking them up in Azkaban prison? Scrimger frowned even deeper and said, you shouldn't question the prisons managed by the Ministry of Magic. What's more, there has never been such a thing as the death penalty in the British wizarding world. It's too inhumane. Irina nodded in agreement and said, yes, the death penalty is an inhumane practice. But, why did those Death Eaters die? Scrimger said in a deep voice, they died in battle. Facing these vicious Death Eaters, we have the power to kill them on the spot in order to preserve ourselves. Irina smiled and said, yes, then why can't those Death Eaters do the same? Mr. Scrimger, you should know that those Death Eaters are much more difficult to deal with than the Death Eaters we just faced, right? Scrimger shook his head and said, but they have been controlled and are no longer a threat to us. Hearing Scrimger's words, Irina smiled even more happily. She bowed slightly and then gestured to Dumbledore. The next moment, Dumbledore shook the wand in his hand lightly, and the water prison that controlled Rabaston Lestrange suddenly disappeared, allowing Rabaston Lestrange to regain his freedom. Dumbledore, you. Seeing this scene, Scrimgeour immediately looked at Dumbledore angrily. He didn't understand why Dumbledore would let go of the Death Eaters who had been controlled. At this time, after regaining his freedom, Rabaston Lestrange quickly waved his wand and cast a Cruciatus curse in the direction of Irina. Under the illumination of the bloody dark mark, Rabaston only felt that his whole body was filled with powerful magic. He felt that no one could defeat him, except a demon-level wizard like Dumbledore. The bloody dark mark filled his eyes with bloodshot. The sudden and huge power that did not belong to him made Rabaston a little too proud. As soon as he regained his freedom, he did not apparat to escape from this place of trouble. Instead, he raised his wand and launched a sneak attack on Irina, who had killed the most Death Eaters on his side. However, since it was Irina who asked Dumbledore to let go of Rabaston, she was naturally ready for a fight. The Cruciatus curse penetrated Irina's figure, as if it was just an illusion. The next moment, Irina's figure turned into a sky full of ice mist and exploded, and her body had already been quickly shuttled behind Rabaston under the power of ice. Chapter 382, Continuous Stabbing with Ice Spears, Voldemort's Escape. The icy mist that exploded blocked Rabaston's sight, so he didn't notice Irina who appeared behind him at the first time. At the same time, Irwin also waved his wand, and a thunderbolt fell from the sky and headed straight for Rabaston. However, although the power of this thunderbolt was enough to kill a Death Eater, it was so insignificant to Rabaston, whose magic level was infinitely close to that of a Demon King level wizard under the illumination of the bloody dark mark. Rabaston waved his wand quickly and released a circular armor spell with a diameter of half a meter above his head. This armor spell could just block the thunderbolt. Unlike the spherical armor spell that enveloped the entire body, when ordinary auras released the armor spell, most wizards with high magic levels would choose to condense the armor spell into a very small area when casting the armor spell to accurately intercept the spell attacking them. The biggest advantage of doing so is that it can save nearly 70% of magic power, giving oneself a better chance of winning. But there is a big disadvantage to doing this. That is, you must be sure that the spell attacking you only comes from the direction you see. Otherwise, if you cannot see through all the spells that attack you, then the armor spell condensed in a very small area will not be able to resist the spells from other directions. Rabaston, who was blindly confident because of the surge in magic power, did not notice Irina who appeared behind him. He only used the armor spell to resist the thunder from his head and neglected to defend his back. Irina stabbed out the ice crystal spear in her hand without hesitation. The ice power spit out from the tip of the ice crystal spear and turned into a spearlight several feet long. Puff. Up. With the sound of flesh and blood being pierced, Rabaston was stunned in place. He lowered his head in disbelief, but saw a spearhead flashing with ice blue cold light breaking through his flesh and blood and piercing out from his heart. Before Rabaston could wave his wand to block the spear or heal his wound, Irina controlled a large mass of icy power to explode at the tip of the ice crystal spear. The next moment, Rabaston's heart and the left half of his body were blown into pieces of flesh, and blood splattered, staining Irina's face with blood. Looking at Irina, who had killed a Death Eater who was infinitely close to a Demon King with one shot, Scrimgeour's eyes were dull, and he was speechless for a while. At this time, Irina waved to Dumbledore again. Dumbledore smiled slightly, and he waved his wand gently, and the water prison spell that controlled Amicus Caro disappeared. Amicus Caro, who had watched Irina kill Rabaston, was naturally well prepared. He waved his wand quickly. He did not use powerful black magic, but used low-cost attack magic such as disarming spells and stun spells to try to suppress Irina and Irving. Amicus, who temporarily possessed a magic level infinitely close to that of a Demon King level wizard, cast every disarming spell or stun spell, which was as powerful as the powerful black magic he usually cast. Under Amicus's crazy offensive, Irina and Irving gradually retreated, but their retreat did not last long. Irina followed the same method and let a figure transformed by the power of ice stay in place, while her real body quickly shuttled to the right rear of Amicus. The Irina in a white robe with a snowflake decoration on her head was shattered into a sky full of ice mist by a shattering spell, while Irina in a black wizard robe with blood on her face held an ice crystal spear and swung it at Amicus. At the same time, Irving also waved his wand and summoned 3 thunderbolts that struck down from the air in an instant, striking Amicus from 3 different directions at the same time. Although Amicus only had the 3 thunderbolts summoned by Irving in his vision, he did not condense the armor spell into a small area, but turned it into an invisible spherical shield to cover his body. The 3 thunderbolts bombarded Amicus's armor spell, bombarding it with cracks all over. The next second, an ice blue streak flew out from the ice crystal spear, fiercely hitting the cracked armor spell, cutting it apart, and flew towards Amicus with undiminished power. Feeling the armor spell breaking from behind, Amicus lay down without hesitation. His hair brushed against the ice blue silk, and was cut and flew up. Amicus rolled and stood up. He touched his hair, and showed fear on his face. He was almost going to follow in Rabaston's footsteps. In the following battle, Amicus was careful everywhere. He seemed to no longer regard Irina and Irving as wizards weaker than himself, but as demon-level wizards. The change in mentality made every action of Amicus become much more stable. Even though Irina and Irving used the 2 ancient magics of Ice Phantom and Thunder respectively, it took more than half an hour to kill Amicus. At this time, there were less than 20 minutes left before the end of the 413 memories brought by the time loop. Irina signaled to Dumbledore again, and asked Dumbledore to release a Death Eater. The Death Eater who lifted the water prison curse this time happened to be Amicus's sister, Electo Caro. Watching his brother being killed by Irina and Irving, Electo Caro's hatred for Irina and Irving had reached an indescribable level. She attacked the 2 frantically, and her offensive was no less than that of his brother Amicus. However, Electo's madness also doomed her end to be no better than Amicus's, and her crazy attack made her neglect her own defense. After resisting Electo's continuous attack for 15 minutes, Irina finally found an opportunity. After using the ice spikes protruding from the ground to pierce Electo's legs, she used the power of ice again to shuttle behind Electo and pierced Electo's body with the gun. In this way, the Caro brothers and sisters both died in Irina's hands. At this time, an hour had passed. In the air, Lin En could no longer predict Voldemort's behavior, let alone restrict his actions. Although Voldemort thought he could turn defeat into victory, looking at the Death Eaters who were about to be killed by Irina below, even if he was stupid, he knew that this battle could not go on. So, Voldemort waved his wand again, his body turned into a ball of black smoke, and after bypassing Lin En's interception, he pounced on the more than 10 Death Eaters who were firmly controlled by the water prison curse below. Chapter 383 Returning to the castle, Fudge's questioning. Under the illumination of the bloody dark mark, Voldemort, whose magic power was enhanced, easily broke the water prison spell that Dumbledore had set up without much effort, and carried Bellatrix and others who were tightly bound inside away, turning them into a wisp of black smoke and flying away. Lin and Dumbledore did not stop Voldemort from escaping, but came to Irina and Irving. "How is it? Are you okay?" Lin looked at the 2 and asked. "Nothing." Irving shook his head and said. Compared with Irina, who was holding an ice crystal spear and turned into a melee wizard, he was more like a pure wizard who was controlling the thunder attack from a distance. He looked like he was not hurt, except that he looked a little sluggish due to excessive consumption of magic power. Irina gently wiped the blood from the Death Eaters on her side face. She also shook her head and said, "I'm fine too. Their spell didn't hit me." Lin nodded slightly, but there was still some worry in his expression when he looked at Irina. Although Irina was not hit by any of the Death Eater's spells, she was hit by Voldemort's Cruciatus curse before he broke through the Demon King level wizard. It's not a good idea to worry now. Let's wait until we return to Hogwarts Castle and use the old chemical equipment to check her thoroughly. Lin En shook off the distracting thoughts in his mind and looked at Scrimgeour and others not far away. Lin came to Scrimgeour first. He took the initiative to extend his hand to show his goodwill. "It's a pleasure to fight alongside you, Mr. Scrimgeour. I've seen your command of the Aura's operations just now. If you were on the battlefield in ancient times, you would be a very good general." "Thank you." Scrimgeour shook Lin's hand and nodded. "It's my honor to fight alongside you, Mr. All. A 15-year-old Demon King level wizard. This has never happened in the entire wizarding world." After talking with Scrimgeour for a few words, Lin came to old Barty again. He smiled and said, "You have completed your mission very well, old Barty. The timing of the auras arriving at the battlefield is perfect. Old Barty bowed slightly, stroked his chest with his right hand, and said, "It's my honor to fight for your will." The conversation between Lin and Old Barty was not heard by others due to the effect of the ear-blocking spell. In Scrimgeour's eyes, Old Barty's actions might just be an attempt to win over Lin, the youngest Demon King level wizard in history. Finally, Lin came to the 4 or 5 reporters from the Daily Prophet and said calmly, "Have you recorded all the footage that should be recorded? Tell Michelle that I hope the truth can be reported, not hidden by some stupid guys." Hearing Lin's words, the 4 or 5 reporters from the Daily Prophet were all sweating coldly, and one of them said quickly, "Follow your will, Mr. All." Lin didn't say much. He waved his hand and motioned them to leave. Seeing Lin's gesture, the reporters from the Daily Prophet hesitated for a moment, then waved their wands and apparated away. They understood that they had to compile what happened here into news as quickly as possible, and then publish it in the day after tomorrow. No, tomorrow's Daily Prophet. Only by cutting the Gordian knot can we ensure that, even if Fudge learned of the news, he would not have time to intercept it before they publish tomorrow's Daily Prophet. After the reporters from the Daily Prophet left, Scrimgeour came over with the auras. The dozen auras who were knocked down by Voldemort's Cruciatus curse also recovered with the help of the recovery potion. It's time for us to return to the Ministry of Magic. Although we haven't been able to arrest all the escapees from Azkaban prison, with these 4 guys, we can barely get the job done. What's more, we have obtained the information about the resurrection of you-know-who, which is the most important thing, Scrimgeour said to Lin, and then he also apparated away with the auras. At this time, only Lin, Irina, Irving, Dumbledore, Barty the Elder and Sirius were left standing in the cemetery. Lin looked at Barty the Elder and ordered, "You should also go to the Ministry of Magic with Scrimgeour and the others. You have been missing for half a year. It must be a big trouble to take over the affairs that originally belonged to you." Barty the Elder nodded slightly, and he waved his wand and apparated away. After old Barty left, Lin turned his gaze to Sirius and the unconscious Harry in his arms. "Is he okay?" Lin asked. Sirius shook his head and said, "Harry is fine. This kid is really like his father. He dared to attack so many Death Eaters from behind. When we arrived, I happened to see him being knocked unconscious by a Death Eater with a stunning spell." Lin nodded slightly. If it was just a stunning spell, then Harry would definitely be fine. Lin thought for a moment and said, "Uncle Sirius, remove the portkey magic on the Goblet of Fire, and then take Harry and the Goblet of Fire to number 12 Grimmauld Place to avoid the limelight. Professor Dumbledore and we will handle the matters of Hogwarts Castle and the Ministry of Magic." Sirius hesitated for a moment, but still agreed to Lin's request. He put Harry on his back, and then walked towards the Goblet of Fire. After watching Sirius leave, Lin looked at Dumbledore, and said with a smile, "Professor, we should go back." Dumbledore nodded slightly, and motioned Lin, Irina and Irving to put their hands on him. The next moment, Fawkes, who was standing on Dumbledore's shoulder, let out a long cry, a ball of fire flashed, and the group disappeared from the spot. In the blink of an eye, a group of people appeared at the edge of the maze, and the stands with a dark crowd were not far from them. In the more than an hour that Lin and others disappeared, the little wizards in the stands could no longer hold back. They were noisy and quarreling. Fortunately, Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick were here to maintain order, so there was no bigger chaos. However, Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick could control the little wizards, but they could not control Fudge, Bagman, Madame Maxim and other people from the Ministry of Magic and the principals of other magic schools. As for Karkaroff, he had already run away with his luggage as soon as the riot broke out in the stands. A few breaths after Dumbledore, Lin and the other 2 appeared. Fudge ran over panting and roared, "Dumbledore, what the hell are you playing? Where did you take the warriors of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and those 2 little wizards?" Chapter 384. The truth will eventually be revealed by the sun and the moon, even if the yellow sand buries them. Without waiting for Dumbledore to reply, Lin walked forward and said with a smile, "Minister Fudge, I think I can answer your question." Fudge frowned and said, "Warrior All, well, tell me, what did Dumbledore take you to do?" Lin chuckled, but did not answer immediately. Instead, he put the wand against his neck and whispered, loud voice. Seeing Lin's actions, Fudge couldn't help but have an ominous premonition. But before he could stop Lin En's action, Lin En had already spoken. When I grabbed the goblet of fire, I found that the goblet of fire had been transformed into a portkey, which took me to a cemetery. In that cemetery, I witnessed the resurrection of the mysterious man in the gathering of dozens of Death Eaters who escaped from Azkaban prison. After I dealt with the mysterious man and dozens of Death Eaters alone for about 5 or 6 minutes, Professor Dumbledore came with my partner. He led us to repel Voldemort, defeat the Death Eater camp, drive them away, and lead us back to Hogwarts Castle safely. This is what Professor Dumbledore did with us. With the blessing of the loud voice spell, Lin En's voice spread throughout the stands. In order to take care of the acceptance of the vast majority of young wizards and adult wizards in the stands, Lin En did not call Voldemort a 2-hole electrical socket without hair, a boiled egg without a nose or Voldemort, but called him the mysterious man as people often say. But even so, after learning about the resurrection of Voldemort, there was still an uproar in the stands. Many people showed disbelief, and more people had deep fear in their eyes. During the years, when Voldemort was wreaking havoc in the British wizarding world, countless wizards were shrouded in the fear of the Death Eaters. Death and killing spread throughout the entire wizarding world, which made them deeply afraid of Voldemort and the Death Eaters. The information about Voldemort's resurrection awakened the fear deep in their minds. Ridiculous. The mysterious man has been dead for a long time. Died on that night 14 years ago. You are crazy, Lin Rao. Don't talk nonsense here. I want Dumbledore to answer my questions in person. Dumbledore. Fudge roared loudly, his eyes full of madness. He knew very well that, if Voldemort's resurrection happened during his term, what terrible things would happen. Oh my god, the Minister of Magic named Cornelius Fudge had a Dark Lord during his term. What a failure that Minister Fudge was. If this view is generally accepted by wizards, then he is doomed. Thinking of this, Fudge collapsed more and more. He looked at Dumbledore fiercely, hoping to hear a different voice from Dumbledore. However, Lin spoke again, and his voice became louder with the blessing of the sound booming spell. Whether it is true or false, the facts will tell us. What's more than half an hour after our battle began, Mr. Scrimgeour, the director of the Aura Office of the Ministry of Magic, also came there with more than 20 auras to assist us in killing a large number of Death Eaters, and arrested 4 Death Eaters who surrendered. I think those Death Eaters arrested by the auras are now waiting for trial in the Ministry of Magic. Not only that, the scenes there were also fully recorded by the reporter of the Daily Prophet. Minister Fudge, it's too late to cover up the truth at this time. The truth will eventually be revealed to the sun and the moon, even if the yellow sand buries them. Lin said so, and at the end, there was a bit of mockery in his eyes. Even if Fudge put down everything in his hands and ran back to the Ministry of Magic, shutting up the 4 Death Eaters forever and erasing the truth, he would definitely not be able to stop the reports about tonight from being all over tomorrow's Daily Prophet. After all, judging from the speed at which the reporters of the Daily Prophet apparated back, the finalized press release at this time might have been added to tomorrow's Daily Prophet and was being printed quickly in the magic printer. Hearing Lin's words, Fudge's expression became more desperate. Since Lin had mentioned Scrimgeour and the auras, Lin would definitely not lie here, which means that what Lin said was true. Voldemort was really resurrected, and there were indeed those 4 damn hot potatoes in the Ministry of Magic. No, there is still a chance. Compared with the Daily Prophet, the public should be more willing to believe the official announcement of the Ministry of Magic. I still have a chance, as long as I make them up as lunatics and old fools. Fudge muttered in a low voice, his face full of madness. Fudge's mumblings all fell into Lin's ears. At this time, Lin had already put down the wand against his neck. He chuckled and said, "You made me up as a lunatic? Haha, maybe people will believe that a Demon King level wizard over 100 years old is old and confused, but they will never believe that a 15-year-old Demon King level wizard is a lunatic." Hearing Lin's words, Fudge laughed crazily. 15-year-old Demon King level wizard? Roll. I didn't expect you to be really crazy. Even Dumbledore became a Demon King level wizard after middle age, not to mention you, a minor student. I think Hogwarts. Fudge's voice stopped abruptly before he could finish his words, and there was only fear in his expression. Lin looked at him expressionlessly, and a huge magic power from the Demon King level wizard turned into a substantial pressure and descended on Fudge, making Fudge unable to move, and even his bones felt a sharp pain. Are you really a demon level wizard? Damn it, why do all of you want to go against me? Fudge said in disbelief, and soon, his disbelief turned into a crazy roar. Hearing this, Lin just said indifferently, no one has ever wanted to be your enemy, Cornelius Fudge. It's just your malicious imagination of others that has pulled everyone to the opposite side of you. After that, Lin no longer paid attention to the distraught Fudge, but went in the direction of Hogwarts Castle. Dumbledore, Irina and Irving followed closely. After everything was over, they should also release the real Alastair Moody from the box. It has been nearly a year, and it is really wronged for him. In order to prevent Barty Crouch Jr. from noticing the exposure of his identity, they did not rescue Moody in advance, but let Barty Jr. lock him in the box and pluck his hair every day to make Polyjuice Potion. This made Dumbledore, Lin and the others feel guilty towards Moody to the extreme. Before Lin could take any action, Dumbledore raised his hand and cast an explosive spell to blast open the door of the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's office and walked in. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385. Are you worthy of being the Minister of Magic? Exclamation mark. In a corner behind the desk, Lin En saw a locked box. From the magical fluctuations on the box, he could sense that the box was cast with an anti-unlocking spell, and ordinary unlocking spells could not open it. Lin En raised his left hand, and an alchemical array was refined in an instant. A stream of golden light flew out of the alchemical array like a fluid, pouring into the keyhole of the box. After filling it up, it turned to the right. With a click sound, the box was opened. After Lin En broke through to the Demon King level wizard, he only needed a thought to refine an alchemical array. His speed of refining alchemical arrays was much stronger than that of Wallace and Green, who could also form an array with a thought. Moreover, Lin En's magic quality had a qualitative leap with his promotion, which made the power of the alchemical array he refined much stronger than usual. Lin waved his wand gently, and Moody, who was trapped at the bottom of the box with a traceless extension charm, was lifted up by the levitation charm, and lay flat on the desk. Moody looked miserable now. Barty had been plucking his hair for almost a whole school year to make Polyjuice Potion, which left him with few intact hairs on his body, and his head was even bald. Seeing his old comrade in such a miserable state, even though Dumbledore himself agreed to postpone the plan to rescue Moody, he still had some anger in his eyes. Dumbledore took out several bottles of potions from his pocket. Some of these potions were used to remove the curse on Moody, some were hair growth potions, and some were general healing potions. Not long after the unconscious Moody took the potion, Moody finally woke up slowly. Looking at Moody, who was full of confusion on his face, Dumbledore told Moody what had happened in this school year. After learning that he had been attacked by Barty the Younger and Peter Pettigrew, and had been under a stunning curse for nearly a year, Moody's face was filled with anger. He roared in a low voice, wishing he could pick up his wand and fight those damned Death Eaters right now. After hearing that Peter Pettigrew and Barty the Younger had already been killed by Sirius and Irina, Moody's expression barely eased. However, after learning about the resurrection of Voldemort, Moody's face became solemn again. Having experienced the rampage of the Dark Lord, he naturally knew what kind of disaster Voldemort's resurrection would bring to the British wizarding world. Finally, after hearing that Lin had been promoted to a Demon King level wizard in the battle, turned the tide with his own strength, and repelled Voldemort, and even bribed the reporters of the Daily Prophet to publish reports about today's battle tomorrow, Moody finally showed some interest. So, you are Lin Rowe, Hendry's child? Moody smiled at Lin. His scarred face made his smile look particularly ferocious, but in the eyes of Lin and others, it was so kind. Lin nodded gently and said, "Yes, Mr. Moody." Moody laughed and patted Lin on the shoulder, saying, "Since you are here, the future of the British wizarding world may be saved. Dumbledore is still too weak." Dumbledore looked at him with a wry smile. He knew that he was too accommodating, When facing the official forces such as the Ministry of Magic, he was so accommodating that he seemed not to be a once powerful Demon King level wizard, but an ordinary headmaster who was highly respected but had no power. However, after his mistakes were pointed out by Lin and Irina, he also understood that doing so might make those stupid guys inflate their inexplicable self-confidence. Only by using both kindness and force like Lin, perhaps it is the best way to govern the wizarding world. After all, oppression like Voldemort will only usher in a more violent counterattack, and Dumbledore's blind dedication will lead to a situation where people are grateful for what they have done and resentful for what they have done. There is no way, because this is human nature. Only by using both kindness and force, giving a slap and a date, can people be convinced. At least they will not do anything disobedient on the surface. Dumbledore said, "Alastair, you should rest here for a while. We still need to deal with the Triwizard Tournament." Moody nodded in understanding, and he waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about me, go." So Dumbledore walked out of the castle again, and Lin and Irina followed, after asking Irving to stay and take care of Moody. Not long after walking out of the castle and heading towards the original Quidditch field, that is, the maze, the three heard Fudge's voice. Fudge took advantage of the absence of Lin and the others, and after casting the loud voice spell, he brainwashed the surrounding young wizards and other visiting adult wizards. People, if I'm not mistaken, the All Warrior of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is probably completely crazy. Listen to what he said just now. He fought against the you-know-who and dozens of Death Eaters alone for a full 5 minutes. A 15-year-old, underage little wizard can fight against the you-know-who and dozens of Death Eaters on his own without being killed. Do you think it is possible? I think Dumbledore may have become senile and confused. He actually let the little wizard do what he wants. This can't go on, people. We can't believe the words of a crazy student. How can the you-know-who be resurrected? He died completely more than 10 years ago. Fudge said loudly, his eyes full of madness. He knew that neither Dumbledore nor Lin would stand on his side. If that was the case, then there was no need for him to look good to those two people. Even if they are dissatisfied with me, I'm the Minister of Magic. Do Dumbledore and that student dare to do something to me? Exclamation mark. In fact, Lin really dares. Lin's eyes were filled with anger. He flashed and moved in front of Fudge under the push of the alchemy circle that was refined in an instant. His right hand stretched out like a pair of pliers and strangled Fudge's throat. Corneli Fudge. You stupid fat pig, short-sighted guy. You ignore the safety of the entire British wizarding world for your own ministerial throne and regard people's lives as nothing. Now you are still confusing the public and deceiving the masses. Are you worthy of being the Minister of Magic? Lin pinched Fudge with a grim expression and forcibly lifted his fat body up. Chapter 386. The weak follow the rules, while the strong make the rules. Fudge's face suddenly turned the color of liver after his throat was pinched by Lin. He struggled desperately, but it was no use. Fudge spent his whole life chasing after the word power and scheme, and neglected to improve his own magic power. This made him unable to beat even some powerful senior students of Hogwarts Castle, let alone Lin, a demon-level wizard. If every demon-level wizard was like Dumbledore, willing to tie his own hands and feet, and abide by the rules set by the weak, then Fudge would be able to control them tightly with these so-called rules. But in fact, so many demon-level wizards in the past, Nickel Flamel, Gellert Grindelwald and Voldemort, were not the kind of people who were at the mercy of others. Just like Nickel Flamel, he was willing to abide by the rules, but never adhered to them. If the French Ministry of Magic dared to restrict this Demon King level wizard with so-called legal provisions, I'm afraid that Nicholas Flamel would turn against him in a minute, overthrow the Ministry of Magic, and replace it with a more wise minister. With Nicholas Flamel's high prestige in the French magic world, he is fully capable of doing this, which is why the French Ministry of Magic has always treated Nicholas Flamel with courtesy and never dared to offend this Demon King level wizard. For these Demon King level wizards, rules are followed by the weak, and as the strong, they should make rules. Only Dumbledore, who suffered too many twists and turns in the first half of his life, is tired of the idea of dominating the world, and dominating the world. He only hopes to maintain this hard-won peace, and he is willing to spend his whole life for it. And it is this kind of thinking that gives some villains an opportunity to take advantage of it. But now that the slogan for a better peace in the magic world has been issued, Dumbledore, the long sleeping lion, has slowly awakened. When Fudge started to roll his eyes and seemed to be strangled to death by Lin at any moment, Lin finally let go of his hand and threw Fudge heavily to the ground. Lin put his wand against his throat and cast a loud voice spell, then chuckled and said, "In the first project of the Triwizard Tournament, I cast a spell without a sound and a wand to crush an extremely ferocious Hungarian horntail. In the second project, I completed a task that others could not complete in an hour in just 10 minutes. In the third project, the defensive magic cast by hundreds of wizards in the maze was easily destroyed by me. With these achievements as a premise, it seems not difficult to understand that I can resist the attack of the mysterious man for 5 minutes. Of course, maybe everyone is not willing to believe what I said, but as the saying goes, hearing is false, seeing is believing. Please take a look at tomorrow's Daily Prophet carefully," Lin said loudly, and actually stepped out and stepped on Fudge's pig face. Seeing this scene, everyone exclaimed, "Insulting a minister of magic like this is like insulting the head of a country in the muggle world." But after hearing the Daily Prophet in Lin's words, people hesitated again. Perhaps what the warrior named Droll said was true. Exclamation mark. Perhaps their minister Fudge was really deceiving them. Exclamation mark. "Dumbledore, don't you care about your students?" Fudge said with difficulty. Hearing Fudge's words, Dumbledore looked at him indifferently. Dumbledore said in a cold tone, "Hogwarts does not welcome you, Fudge. Leave." As Dumbledore's voice fell, Lin finally loosened his foot on Fudge's face. He and Irina looked at Fudge with unfriendly faces. Fudge climbed up with difficulty. He looked at Dumbledore and Lin with resentment and growled, "You will pay the price." As Fudge said this, he took out a teacup from his pocket. This was a trigger type portkey with the destination of the Ministry of Magic. As the Minister of Magic, Fudge did not know the apparition charm and could only rely on external objects such as portkeys to travel. This was simply ridiculous. Fudge's figure and the teacup in his hand twisted quickly and finally disappeared in the venue. After driving Fudge away, Dumbledore and many other professors including Professor McGonagall maintained order and finally let the Triwizard Tournament end without any danger. Although it was unexpected that the Goblet of Fire was made into a portkey and took Lin and Harry away, it was an indisputable fact that the only 2 warriors who caught the Goblet of Fire were from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Therefore, this Triwizard Tournament ended successfully, and the winner was naturally and indisputably Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. As for the second place, it was not Durmstrang School of Magic, which had a higher score in the first 2 items, but Boxburton School of Magic. This was because after Crumb, who was under the Imperious Curse, was defeated by Lin, Lin fired a red spark for him to ask for help, which meant that Crumb was eliminated. Crumb and other students of Durmstrang School of Magic had great opinions about this, but their principal Karkaroff had already packed up and ran away, which made them have no channel to appeal, even if they were dissatisfied. The next day, the Daily Prophet was printed all over the sky, and the front page news of the Daily Prophet was, "The mysterious man is resurrected." Not only that, among the dozens of reports in the Daily Prophet on that day, except for 2 reports about Fudge talking nonsense outside the maze and being beaten by Lin, the other reports were all about the Battle of Little Hangleton Village. The person behind this incident was naturally Lin En. In order to support the work of the Daily Prophet and spread the report of this battle more clearly, Lin En also publicly provided an alchemical technology to the Daily Prophet for free. This alchemical technology is called the magic photo sound technology. As we all know, the photos taken by the magic camera will move after dripping the developing potion. They are like short videos. They can record a video of up to 30 seconds and engrave it on the photo and play it in an infinite loop. The alchemical technology that Lin En provided to the Daily Prophet is to enable this kind of 30-second long picture or a 30-second silent short video to play the sound in it like a magic portrait. As long as the wizard who reads this Daily Prophet injects magic power into the printed newspaper, the picture on the newspaper will be attached with its sound, so that what happened in Little Hangleton Village last night will be presented to the public more realistically. On this day, in almost every wizard family that subscribed to the Daily Prophet, there was a roar. Voldemort, you dirty, stinking ditch-dwelling insect. You are a noseless boiled egg with a reflective two-hole socket on your head. Go to hell and meet Satan. Chapter 387. The turmoil in the British wizarding world and fudge. A rat on the street. The owner of these roars was naturally not the wizards in these rooms, but the sound from the magic photos, played in the Daily Prophet. The picture played in the magic photo was Lin En's roar against Voldemort, after he was promoted to the Demon King level wizard. After hearing Lin En's naked and undisguised insults to Voldemort, almost all the older generation of wizards who had experienced the rampage of the Dark Lord trembled and showed horror on their faces. They really couldn't imagine how a minor wizard who was still in school dared to insult Voldemort in front of him! Exclamation mark. Is that little wizard not afraid of death? Exclamation mark. However, after seeing the next magic photos in the Daily Prophet that recorded about 30 seconds of scenes and playing the sounds in these magic photos, their expressions changed rapidly like situ an opera face changing. In the incredible eyes of these wizards, Lin En in the picture actually pierced Voldemort's chest with a gun, and in the following consecutive attacks, he pressed Voldemort, the Dark Lord who brought fear to the British magic world. Not only that, the words that Lin En said during the attack completely broke the three views of most wizards in the British magic world. Isn't the mysterious man an extreme pure blood advocate who advocates the concept of pure blood? Exclamation mark. He is actually the product of the love potion of wizards and muggles? Exclamation mark. From Voldemort's gloomy but unrefuted look, these wizards who read the Daily Prophet can judge that what Lin En said is probably true, and such a fact makes people feel terrified and incredible. After listening to Lin En's words, all the wizards who were reading the Daily Prophet calmed down with expressions of fear or anger on their faces. Yes, the era of the Dark Lord had passed more than 10 years ago. Since Lin En was able to suppress the Dark Lord Voldemort in a single fight, it must mean that Lin En has reached the level of the Demon Lord. The era of the Dark Lord has passed, and now it belongs to the era of the young. After seeing the magic photo in which Voldemort used some special forbidden technique to forcibly enhance the magical power of himself and a group of Death Eaters, and regained the upper hand and beat Lin En to a defeat, the wizards who were reading the Daily Prophet showed their worries again. They were worried that the rising star of this era had ended before it rose, that the old era had covered up the power of the new era, and that Lin En, the new fighting force and the new hope of the British magic world, would be strangled in the cradle by Voldemort. However, Lin En did not disappoint them. After seeing the next scene recorded in the magic photo, almost every wizard who was reading the Daily Prophet exclaimed, "Time loop formation. 413 time loops." In the impression of wizards, the only means by which magic can control the power of time is the time converter, and the conditions and cost of this conversion are extremely high. The time that the time converter can go back to is extremely limited, and time travel through the time converter cannot change history, but can only witness history. This means that, if people want to achieve their goals in the past, they must go to great lengths to achieve a closed loop of time. Otherwise, those time travelers who use the time converter will be completely lost in time and completely wiped out from this world by the power of time. But Lin En's time cycle formation is different. This is a real control of time. Lin En can cycle the time of an entire area without relying on any props, relying only on his own abilities, and use the power of time to defeat his opponents on the battlefield. Perhaps in the French magic world, there will be powerful alchemists who can see that what Lin En is performing is the time cycle formation invented by the great alchemist Nicolas Flamel, but there are no more than 5 alchemists with such insight in the entire magic world. Even Dumbledore, who was equally skilled in alchemy and had worked with Nicolas Flamel, had never known about the time loop array. This shows how shocking it would be if this alchemy array appeared in the magic world. After seeing Lin successfully drive Voldemort away, and Irina and others killed most of the Death Eaters, all the wizard families who subscribed to the Daily Prophet cheered. In the hall of Hogwarts Castle, the cheers of hundreds of young wizards seemed to lift the ceiling of the hall. Lin was able to repel Voldemort, who had the magic power of the Demon King after his resurrection, which meant that Voldemort was no longer invincible as he was more than a decade ago. The British magic world already has a Demon King level wizard who can defeat Voldemort, and he is still a young wizard who is not yet an adult. This means that Lin's long life will allow him to protect the British magic world for hundreds of years. How can the wizards in the British magic world not be excited? Exclamation mark. After all, Dumbledore is old, and even reporters like Rita Skeeter can insult him as a rigid old lunatic without scruples. How long can Dumbledore, who is already in his twilight years, protect them? Exclamation mark. After reading the entire story of the Battle of Little Hangleton Village last night, all the wizards who subscribed to the Daily Prophet felt their hearts surge. But at this moment, they saw reports in the next section of the Daily Prophet that Fudge was talking nonsense outside the maze and brainwashing other wizards present. After seeing what Fudge did, these wizards who had already regarded Lin as the new hope of the British wizarding world suddenly felt endless anger. Except for the little wizards who were still studying at Hogwarts Castle and could not leave the castle without permission, most of the wizards who had read the Daily Prophet could not hide their anger and pulled out their wands, took to the streets to protest against the Ministry of Magic. There were even more wizards who immediately wrote a howler letter to Fudge and asked the owl to send it to Fudge's ministerial office. However, in just one morning, Fudge's reputation in the hearts of the British wizarding community plummeted, and he almost became a rat crossing the street that everyone wanted to beat. At the same time, in the minister's office, Minister Fudge, the number of wizards parading on Diagon Alley and other streets is increasing. According to incomplete statistics from patrolling auras, the number of people participating in this parade has reached 30% of the total number of wizards in the British wizarding community registered with the Ministry of Magic. And the real data will only be more than this. A Ministry of Magic employee quickly walked into Fudge's office and reported the contents of the parchment in his hand to Fudge. Chapter 388, Interfering in Hogwarts and Making Dumbledore's Efforts Go to Waste. Bang. After hearing the report from the Ministry of Magic employee, Fudge angrily smashed a valuable vase, which was a new item purchased for him by the Ministry of Magic, after he smashed the minister's office last time. Fudge growled, "Let the auras arrest those ignorant guys. They dared to march on the streets and openly oppose the Ministry of Magic. They are really against them. Let the strikers and the auras act together." "Yes, Minister Fudge." The Ministry of Magic employee bowed slightly to Fudge, then walked out of the minister's office backwards. "I'll do it right away." Fudge watched the Ministry of Magic employee leave, but did not notice the disgust and mockery in the Ministry of Magic employee's eyes. "Let the auras and strikers arrest those wizards?" Exclamation mark. "Don't be ridiculous, okay? You are mentally ill, but we are not. I clearly stated in my report just now that the number of wizards participating in the march is as high as 30% of the total number of wizards in the British wizarding world, and this number will only be more than the data analyzed by the auras. How many are 30% of the total number of wizards in the British wizarding world? Hundreds or even thousands? And how many auras are there in the aura office, even if all the strikers are added? Just over 100. With such a huge gap in the number of wizards, even if the auras and strikers are well trained, they can never be the opponents of such a large number of wizards. You know, without any preparation, even a little wizard who is still studying in Hogwarts Castle can kill a well-trained aura, let alone so many adult wizards? Exclamation mark. Even if they cast a spell each, it is enough to kill the auras. This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that, if the auras and strikers do this, it is equivalent to the Ministry of Magic openly making enemies with the wizards in the British wizarding world. The government is the enemy of the people, so what is the result? Exclamation mark. However, what the superiors do is not what this Ministry of Magic employee needs to consider. He still fulfilled his duties and passed Fudge's words to Scrimgeour, the director of the Aura office. As expected by the employee of the Ministry of Magic, after learning about Fudge's arrangement, Scrimgeour laughed out of anger. He mocked without hesitation, "Is this idiot Fudge worthy of being the Minister of Magic? He openly opposes British wizards and pushes the Ministry of Magic to the opposite side of the people. Fudge wants to destroy the Ministry of Magic and the entire British wizarding world." Scrimgeour did not obey Fudge's orders. Instead, he sent out Fudge's orders word for word and ordered his men to deliver them to the Daily Prophet. In the Battle of Little Hangleton Village last night, Scrimgeour also understood that the Daily Prophet was now controlled by Lin, so passing the news about Fudge, the enemy of Lin, to the Daily Prophet would naturally help Lin. This was Scrimgeour's way of repaying Lin. If Lin hadn't resisted Voldemort's attack, and if Irina and Irving hadn't helped the Aurors to kill and arrest so many Death Eaters, then after last night's battle, let alone the Aurors, even Scrimgeour would probably not be able to return alive. After all, that was the mysterious man himself. After learning that Fudge dared to order the Auror office and the strikers to arrest the people who were marching, the Daily Prophet was surprised. They rushed to write overnight, and based on this order from Fudge, they wrote a series of reports accusing Fudge. And in order to make the voices against Fudge and the entire wizarding world reach a climax, Michelle Anderson, after consulting Lin, actually let the hidden Rita Skeeter come out in advance. Rita Skeeter, who had been holding back for several months, wrote 5 reports accusing Fudge on the first night of her coming out. Minister Fudge, the biggest cancer in the British wizarding world. If Fudge doesn't step down, the British wizarding world will never have a chance to make a breakthrough. Fudge, is he the Minister of Magic for the British Wizards, or an undercover sent by the mysterious person? The Life and Lies of Cornelius Fudge. A list of the stupid things Fudge did during his tenure. After reading the Daily Prophet the next day, the dissatisfaction of the entire British wizarding world with Fudge reached its climax. Countless people were protesting against Fudge, hoping to get this stupid guy Fudge to step down. And Dumbledore also presided over the Wizengamot at the first time, and launched an impeachment against Cornelius Fudge. After learning that even Dumbledore, an old guy who never participated in the affairs of the Ministry of Magic, came to meddle, and wanted to kick him out of the position of Minister of Magic, Fudge suddenly felt desperate. However, Dolores Umbridge, the senior deputy minister of the Ministry of Magic who was appointed by Fudge himself, came to him at this time, and gave Fudge the last hope. Mr. Minister, the people's anger towards you is only temporary. The ignorant people have no memory. As long as other things attract their attention, all the bad things you have done will be gradually forgotten by them. Umbridge said to Fudge in a hoarse voice. Fudge frowned and growled, but Dumbledore has already impeached me. Even if they forget what I did, by that time I will have been thrown into some gutter. Hearing this, Umbridge smiled ugly, and she whispered, Mr. Minister, with the power you still hold in the Ministry of Magic, even if you can't stop Dumbledore from impeaching you, you can still delay the impeachment process, right? You just need to prevent yourself from being impeached successfully in one Wizengamot meeting, but delay the impeachment process from one Wizengamot meeting to 2, 3 or even more Wizengamot meetings, and use the power in your hands to do things to make Dumbledore anxious during this period. Then Dumbledore will no longer have the leisure to impeach you. Umbridge said in a coquettish voice. Her toad-like eyes kept turning, as if she was thinking about something bad. Fudge's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard Umbridge's suggestion. This fat pig, who was as ugly as Umbridge, burst into laughter and said, Dolores, you really are worthy of being the senior deputy minister of the Ministry of Magic appointed by me personally, my right-hand man. Yes, with my power, I can completely delay this meeting that should have ended within a day to half a year or even longer. So, Dolores, what do you think I should do to make Dumbledore feel overwhelmed? Umbridge's expression became sinister, and her smile became even more creepy. Isn't Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry what Dumbledore cares about most? You just need to interfere in his school and make his hard work go to waste. Then, Umbridge whispered in Fudge's ear, while Fudge laughed heartily. Chapter 389 Editing Memories and Laying the Foundation. Fudge asked happily, so, Dolores, who do you think I should send to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry? I think it must be a wizard worthy of trust, so that I can guarantee that he or she will never betray us and join the old lunatic Dumbledore. Umbridge smiled in her eyes. She put her hands in front of herself, lowered her head like a little girl, and said softly, I'm willing to be your pioneer, Minister Fudge. I, Dolores Umbridge, am willing to go to Hogwarts Castle for Minister Fudge, be your chess piece, and defeat your enemies. Hearing Umbridge's words, Fudge hesitated. Umbridge was his most loyal subordinate in the Ministry of Magic. If she was sent to Hogwarts Castle, then he was afraid that there was really no one in the Ministry of Magic that he could trust. but that was the case. In addition to Umbridge, Fudge had no other available candidates. Finally, Fudge nodded and said, "I understand. Then you go to Hogwarts Castle and disrupt Dumbledore's plan." Although Dumbledore has become tougher in the past 2 years, he is still willing to abide by the laws of the Ministry of Magic. "As long as I make these decisions in the name of the law, even Dumbledore can't refuse me," Fudge said, and he was actually very proud. At the same time, in the principal's office at Hogwarts Castle, Dumbledore smiled and propped his chin with both hands. In front of him was a glass of honey lemonade, and opposite to the desk sat Lin and Irina, each of them with a cup of black tea in front of them. "I have also read the contents of the Daily Prophet these 2 days, but for now, there is only chaos in the British wizarding world," Dumbledore said softly. Hearing this, Irina smiled and said, "The rainbow always appears after the storm. What's more, the wizard's parade is to eradicate the cancer of the Ministry of Magic, and for better peace and stability in the future of the British wizarding world, rather than aimless destruction and resistance. After all, they are not Death Eaters." Dumbledore nodded in approval. Lin said calmly, "The Daily Prophet these past 2 days reported the Battle of Little Hangleton Village on the first day, which allowed the information about Voldemort's resurrection to spread, and made us famous. And the Daily Prophet on the second day, pointed the finger at Fudge, which is also in our favor. Only when Fudge steps down can old Barty Crouch, whom we support, have a chance to take office. As for tomorrow's Daily Prophet, I think it's time to release the edited memories of Barty Crouch Jr. Oh, I forgot, Professor, you may not know what editing is. The so-called editing is to delete the things we don't want people to see in the picture, leaving only what we want people to see. Since we want to support old Barty to take office, then during this period, naturally there cannot be any bad deeds about him. Therefore, the existence of young Barty cannot be known to others, and he must be completely erased from history. Therefore, all memories of young Barty, after sneaking into Hogwarts Castle must be deleted, leaving only fragments of his memory about Voldemort's conspiracy and the death of Bertha Jorkins," Lin said. After saying this, Lin took out the cloud synchronization memory bottle he kept from his pocket, and pulled out the silver ribbon with his wand. Seeing this, Dumbledore cooperated and took out the pensieve, and placed it on the desk. Lin took the opportunity to throw the silver ribbon into the pensieve. The three buried their faces in the pensieve, and entered the memory of Barty Crouch Jr. Lin, Irina and Dumbledore found themselves in the home of Barty Crouch Sr., while Voldemort, who looked like a monster, was held by Wormtail, Peter Pettigrew, and told Barty Jr. about his conspiracy. "Next, watch me," Lin said so, and as he waved his wand, a stream of magic power that condensed into substance broke through the air, and actually cut cracks in this whole world. In the memory, the location of Barty Crouch Jr. and the representative objects that could prove that this was Barty Crouch Jr.'s old house were all cut apart by condensed magic power, and finally turned into nothingness under the bombardment of powerful magic power. Under Lin's control, this memory fragment was rewound and replayed. Lin, Irina and Dumbledore found that they were no longer in Barty Crouch Jr.'s old house, but in an unknown place surrounded by darkness. Barty Crouch Jr., who was standing opposite Voldemort and Peter Pettigrew, disappeared. In this space, except for Lin and the other two who were bystanders, Voldemort and Peter Pettigrew were the only ones left. The three listened to Voldemort's conspiracy, including having someone sneak into Hogwarts Castle, transforming the Goblet of Fire into a portkey, and using Harry's blood to resurrect. However, in this memory fragment, all the words about Barty Crouch Jr. mentioned by Voldemort were erased by Lin using special means, so that Barty Crouch Jr.'s name was distorted into the word Death Eater. Then, Voldemort mentioned how he was brought out of the Forest of Albania by Peter Pettigrew, how he tortured Bertha Jorkins to death, and how he got information about the Triwizard Tournament from her. After getting these two memory fragments, Lin's goal had been achieved. The three of them left the pensieve, and Lin pulled the silver ribbon out again with his wand. On the silver ribbon, the three of them could see that a small section of the silver ribbon at one end had become a little dark. It was the memory that Lin had tampered with and deleted some characters and scenes. Lin raised his left hand, and a ball of invisible magic flew out, shattering the remaining memory fragments on the silver ribbon except for the part with a little dim light. At this point, the silver ribbon pulled by the top of Lin's wand only had that small section with a little dim light. And this was exactly the part of the memory fragment that Lin needed. Lin did not put it back into the cloud synchronization memory bottle, but put it into another ordinary glass bottle. The complete memory fragment of Barty Crouch Jr. naturally needs to be preserved by them, but if Lin En puts this edited memory fragment into the cloud synchronization memory bottle, then the contents of the remaining 99 memory bottles will change accordingly. I will send this memory fragment to the Daily Prophet newspaper and have it published as the content of the Daily Prophet tomorrow. The content of the Daily Prophet in these 3 days will lay the foundation for the future pattern of the British magic world, Lin En said softly. Chapter 390, Lin's assessment. The Ministry of Magic intervenes in Hogwarts. With 3 consecutive days of reports from the Daily Prophet, even the most inexperienced wizards should know the information about Voldemort's resurrection and its authenticity. With the mutual confirmation of the Battle of Little Hangleton Village reported by the Daily Prophet on the first day and the memory fragments of Barty Crouch Jr. on the 3rd day, even if someone is really stupid enough to believe no one, except the announcement of the Ministry of Magic, they can't directly refute the fact that Voldemort has resurrected. Even if these stupid people want to speak for fudge, I'm afraid they can only say such a cerebral atrophy statement as putting aside the facts. Are they not wrong? The 3 consecutive days of reports by the Daily Prophet have completely established the pattern of the British magic world opposing fudge, supporting Hogwarts, and resisting Voldemort. If Lin had only survived Voldemort's hands in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village 3 days ago, or if he was evenly matched with Voldemort, then the wizards might not be so determined. After all, if Lin can only protect himself in the face of Voldemort, or even finds it difficult to protect himself, then how can he protect them? But in fact, Lin En defeated Voldemort by himself, which means that Lin En has the power to defeat Voldemort and the power to protect ordinary wizards like them. This is the fundamental reason why these wizards are willing to support Lin En and place their hopes on Lin En. After Lin En borrowed Dumbledore's phoenix and used the phoenix's flame apparition to send the bottle containing the edited memory fragments to the Daily Prophet newspaper, Dumbledore smiled and placed a piece of parchment on the table in front of Lin En. Dumbledore smiled and said, "Okay, Lin En, your plan is great. But now it's time to talk about your business." "My business?" Lin En looked at the parchment on the table in confusion, and a large title came into view. He couldn't help but read it out. "Owl exam schedule?" Lin En was stunned, and then he remembered that this year was still the year for him to take the owl exam. However, in order to smoothly advance the Triwizard tournament, his owl exam was postponed, and this time was after everything about the Triwizard tournament was settled. "As you can see, Lin, your owl exam will start next week. Your owl exam will last for a week, with theory in the morning and practice in the afternoon. In fact, everyone's owl exam lasts for 2 weeks, but you only took 1 elective course, and this exam was made up for you alone, so the exam time was adjusted accordingly," Dumbledore explained to Lin with a smile. Lin nodded slightly. This year's owl exam for the 5th year wizards had already been conducted before the 3rd event of the Triwizard tournament began, but as a warrior, he did not need to take a unified exam to prepare for the competition. But relatively speaking, when other 5th year wizards began to rest, he had to take an owl exam with only him as a candidate. Soon, the next week arrived. Since Lin was the only candidate for this exam, the Ministry of Magic did not send a large number of examiners to Hogwarts Castle to supervise the exam. Instead, it decided to let the professors of Hogwarts Castle supervise the exam, and the Ministry of Magic only sent 1 staff member to supervise the exam. Lin's first exam was about spells. The theoretical exam in the morning was not difficult for Lin at all. He had mastered all these basic to extreme theoretical knowledge as early as the 1st grade. In the practical exam in the afternoon, Professor Flitwick personally supervised Lin, while another male Ministry of Magic staff member supervised the exam. "Oh, roll, come," Professor Flitwick said, and he took Lin to a row of solid wooden targets about 2 inches thick standing on the ground. Lin looked at the row of hundreds of overlapping solid wooden targets and asked, "Professor, are these the targets that I will be tested on?" Professor Flitwick nodded and said, "Yes, your test is very simple. That is, use the spells you learned in the spell class to smash these targets." You can get 10 points for each target you smash with the same spell, and the full score is 100. In other words, as long as you can smash 10 targets at the same time with a spell, you can get full marks. According to the rules of the OWL exam, candidates can have 3 chances to choose spells, and the test score is the score of the 3 spells that smash the most targets. But Professor Flitwick did not tell Lin this. After learning from Dumbledore that Lin was already a Demon King level wizard, he no longer felt that this small OWL exam would be any obstacle for Lin. Lin nodded slightly. He did not draw his wand, but just flicked his finger in the direction of the target, shatter into pieces. As Lin's voice fell, a grey-white light suddenly broke through the air, cutting through the more than 100 wooden targets with great force, cutting them all into pieces. For a while, the ground was full of broken wood. Seeing this scene, the Ministry of Magic staff in charge of supervision suddenly widened his eyes. Very good, full marks, Raoul. Professor Flitwick said happily. In the following exams, Lin passed all the exams, and no exam could stop him. In the Transfiguration exam on Tuesday, the Defense Against the Dark Arts exam on Thursday, the Ancient Runes exam on Friday, the Potions exam, that was moved forward to Saturday, and the History of Magic exam, that was moved forward to Sunday, Lin got full marks without a doubt. Only the Herbology exam on Wednesday and the Astronomy exam, that was moved forward to Sunday night, Lin was not sure of getting full marks, but even so, it was not a big problem to get an O, which represents excellence. In this way, Lin's OWL exam ended smoothly. However, on Sunday night, when Lin finished the last exam, and was about to return to the Slytherin dormitory, a ball of fire suddenly flashed in front of Lin, and the Phoenix Fawkes put the parchment in his mouth into Lin's hand. After reading the handwriting on the parchment, Lin was stunned, looked at Fawkes, and asked, "Dumbledore is looking for me?" Fawkes nodded gently, jumped onto Lin's shoulder, and took Lin with him into a ball of fire, and disappeared on the spot. When Lin appeared in the principal's office, he found that Dumbledore and Irina had been waiting for him here for a long time. After seeing Lin En coming, Dumbledore said straight to the point, "I have received a message from the Ministry of Magic. They require that a professor be assigned to teach the Defense Against the Dark Arts course at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in the next school year, to correct the bad atmosphere in Hogwarts Castle." Hearing Dumbledore's words, Irina frowned and said, "The Ministry of Magic is going to interfere with the normal operation of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." Chapter 391 Big Loss begins with small wins. Dumbledore hesitated and said, "Irina, maybe the Ministry of Magic does want to interfere with Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, but this time the Ministry of Magic is also acting according to wizard law, not Fudge's words." Faced with the Ministry of Magic's legal requirements, Dumbledore, who had just woken up from his deep sleep, was once again in a dilemma. Irina narrowed her eyes slightly and said, "Professor Dumbledore, don't you see that your impeachment of Fudge has caused him the greatest panic, and the only way he can stop you is to interfere with the thing you care about most, that is, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, so as to make you anxious. Only when you are busy with other things and can't get away, he can have a chance to turn the tide. In this case, do you still think that the Ministry of Magic will show mercy to Hogwarts because it is the only magic school in the UK? No, they are completely rushing to destroy Hogwarts," Irina said forcefully. Dumbledore was a little hesitant at first, but after hearing Irina say that Fudge was going to destroy Hogwarts, the holy place of British wizards, his eyes were suddenly full of determination. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is Dumbledore's life's work, and it is also the foundation of the British wizarding world. How could he let Fudge destroy it? Exclamation mark. Dumbledore said in a deep voice, "I understand. Even if the Ministry of Magic wants to place a professor in Hogwarts Castle, it must first be approved by me, the principal. I'm not against the Ministry of Magic, but Fudge. This is for a better peace in the wizarding world." As he said, Dumbledore raised his hand and conjured up a roll of parchment. A feather pen was writing on the parchment under Dumbledore's control. It seems that he is not going to obey the orders of the Ministry of Magic. But just when Dumbledore was about to let Phoenix Fawkes send the letter out, Lin, who had been silent before, raised his hand to stop him. Dumbledore and Irina both looked at Lin with some doubts. After pondering for a long time, Lin said calmly, "Irina, Professor Dumbledore, what do you think? If Fudge lets the assigned professors into Hogwarts Castle and lets them destroy everything in Hogwarts to a limited extent, will it make clear the parents of those little wizards who are still hesitant about their position? Hearing Lin's words, Dumbledore and Irina were both stunned. Irina asked hesitantly, Lin, do you mean to deliberately let people from the Ministry of Magic in, to make trouble and affect the growth of the little wizards, so as to arouse the anger of those parents who love their children, and want them to succeed, and make those parents point the finger at the Ministry of Magic, and unconsciously stand on our side, and in our camp? Before Irina finished her analysis, Dumbledore said to Lin En with a serious face, Lin, perhaps your method can indeed attract more wizards, but doing so will ruin the future of these little wizards. This is a completely lose-lose situation that harms others, and does not benefit yourself. Hearing this, Lin En raised his hand, to stop Dumbledore from scolding him next. Lin En just whispered, Professor Dumbledore, I have never thought of sacrificing the future of these little wizards. After all, little wizards are the future of the magic world. No matter how eager I'm for quick success, I will not let them become the sacrifice of this power game. However, you seem to have forgotten that, whether in Hogwarts Castle or the British magic world, strength is a standard for measuring truth. We can get rid of the guy planted by the Ministry of Magic at any time, and we can also stop the other party's actions at any time. The guy assigned to Hogwarts Castle by Fudge is not a Demon King level wizard like Voldemort. He is just a pedantic guy who may not even reach the level of an aura. With you and me, 2 Demon King level wizards, do we still need to be afraid of them causing too much trouble? Lin En said with a smile. Dumbledore hesitated. Yes, no matter what the guy from the Ministry of Magic wants to do, as long as they are willing, they can stop the other party's actions at any time. Even, get rid of the other party completely. Lin En said softly, Professor Dumbledore, Fudge has now become a gambler. He has bet his last hope on this game of chess at Hogwarts. Professor Dumbledore, have you ever heard a saying? Dumbledore asked subconsciously, what saying? Lin En's tone became lighter, and he said, bet big and bet small, a big loss begins with a small win. Buy and leave, how will it end if you leave without taking it? Instead of completely cutting off Fudge's retreat, and letting him be like a mad dog, who knows what kind of harm he will do to the wizarding world, it is better to temporarily follow his wishes and let him mistakenly think that he has won, but he doesn't know that a big loss always begins with a small win. Lin En said this with a smile on his face. Hearing Lin En's explanation, Dumbledore and Irina were both a little shocked. Giving Fudge a little last hope, and then letting him completely despair. How cruel is this? Exclamation mark. Wait, Lin, you must have another purpose for doing this, right? Suddenly, Irina seemed to remember something, and there was a little light in her eyes. Hearing this, Dumbledore also looked over curiously. In his eyes, Lin's plan was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only could it completely destroy Fudge, but it could also take the opportunity to win over the parents of those little wizards. But, what other purpose did Lin have? Exclamation mark. Lin smiled at the corner of his mouth, and he nodded slightly at Irina, motioning Irina to continue. Irina thought for a moment and said, I think, Lin, you are doing this to completely eliminate the hidden dangers in the Ministry of Magic and remove obstacles for Old Barty to take the throne, right? If I'm not mistaken, Fudge, who is now the target of public criticism, will not have too many followers, and the one that Fudge will send to Hogwarts Castle must be one of his few remaining followers. The professors assigned by Fudge, as well as those Ministry of Magic staff who are still willing to help Fudge's tyranny and interfere in the affairs of Hogwarts Castle, are all Fudge's remnants. After the next school year, we can use this as a basis to eliminate all Fudge's remnants and make Old Barty's path to power unimpeded. Irina said so, her ice blue eyes full of spirit. This is no longer a method of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, but a method of killing 3 birds with 1 stone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392 takes you to witness the infinite prosperity of this world. Finally, after nearly half an hour of hesitation and inner struggle, Dumbledore chose the plan given by Lin. Let the professors assigned by Fudge come to Hogwarts Castle to give Fudge the last hope, and at the end of the next school year, completely settle accounts with Fudge and his remnants, and promote the confirmation of Voldemort's promotion. After the discussion that night, Lin and Irina returned to their normal life in Hogwarts Castle, and spent the last 3 weeks of this school year. At the year-end dinner, when Lin and Irina came to the hall, they saw that the hall was decorated with silver and green ribbons. There is no doubt that this year's college cup still belongs to Slytherin. After seeing those Slytherin decorations, even though Irina herself is a little lion of Gryffindor College, she also showed a sincere smile on her face. Compared with the hall full of black curtains in the original book to commemorate Cedric's death, these silver and green colors are so much more beautiful. Especially after seeing Cedric still laughing and talking with his companions at the Hufflepuff table, Lin and Irina looked at each other from a distance and both smiled happily. They came to this world once, and the things they could change were really limited. Now, they were able to save the sunny and cheerful Hufflepuff senior Cedric, which made them feel very happy. Dumbledore stood up from the teacher's seat. After announcing the scores of the 4 colleges, he added points to Lin, Irina, Irving, who faced Voldemort directly, and Harry, who was knocked unconscious by the Death Eaters, recovered from his injuries at number 12 Grimmauld Place, and returned to Hogwarts Castle. As a warrior who repelled Voldemort, Lin naturally got the most points. The second place was Irina and Irving, who fought side by side, and killed a large number of Death Eaters. As for Harry, his courage and record of knocking down several Death Eaters also earned him extra points, but his extra points were slightly less than Irina and others. After the extra points, Gryffindor's ranking surpassed Ravenclaw, which was originally ranked second, but it was still below Slytherin. However, after the ownership of the College Cup was announced, even the little lions of Gryffindor were rarely dissatisfied with it. After all, the contributions made by Lin to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and the entire British wizarding world were obvious to all. They naturally had no objection to the fact that Slytherin, where Lin was, could get first place. Even because of Lin, many little lions had a much better impression of Slytherin. At least, Slytherin was no longer the production base of dark wizards in the eyes of the little lions. Whether it was Lin or Irving, the 2 heroes who fought against the Death Eaters were from Slytherin College. How could they slander Slytherin College as they did in the past? Exclamation mark. After the year-end dinner, all the little wizards had to go home to spend their summer vacation. The next day, on the Hogwarts Express, Lin, Irina and Irving found an empty carriage. What are your plans for this summer vacation? Lin looked at the 2 and asked. Irving smiled and said, I plan to learn the Fidelius charm this summer. I hope to be able to protect Fly Castle and prevent my family from getting hurt. Although I can no longer enter Fly Castle after casting the Fidelius charm as a secret keeper, I still have Hogwarts Castle and all of you, don't I? Lin smiled and nodded to him and said, of course, my friend. Both Hogwarts Castle and Row Castle will always open their doors to welcome you. In addition to learning the Fidelius charm, do you have any other plans? Irving nodded and said, I plan to continue to increase the power of my lightning spell. Even in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village that day, my lightning spell was enough to kill a Death Eater, but I understand that it is far from enough. This summer, my goal is to cast a lightning spell that is powerful enough to hurt a demon level wizard as an ordinary wizard. Lin smiled and said, I look forward to your becoming stronger, friend. After Lin En finished speaking, Irina curiously held her chin with her hand, blinked her beautiful eyelashes, stared at Lin En's dark red eyes, and asked, so, Lin En, what are your plans for the summer vacation? Lin En smiled and said, I plan to continue to study with my teacher in July, and in August I will go to see my master and ask him for some experience of the Demon King level wizard. In the arrangement of this summer vacation, Lin En never mentioned going to Lefenny Lane to hone himself. After becoming a Demon King level wizard, those ordinary black wizards no longer had any meaning for him to train. After all, no one will become stronger in a battle with ants because they stepped on an ant to death. Instead of going to Lefenny Lane to fight those ants, it is better to ask Nickel Flamel, who was already a Demon King level wizard hundreds of years ago, for some experience. That might make Lin En much stronger. Irina nodded slightly, and she said, I'm about the same as you. In July, I plan to continue to learn the use of space magic such as the Traceless extension spell and the door key with my teacher, and learn more about the habits and ways of getting along with magical animals. As for August, my teacher plans to introduce me to a famous magic plant master. The magic plant master can teach me the habits and ways of contacting the magic plants in the magic world. I think my talent for affinity with magic plants should be put to use, Irina said with a smile. It is naturally better to get formal teaching of magic plants than to stupidly throw Chinese biting cabbage out. The smile on Lin En's face never stopped, but after Irina finished talking about her arrangements, Lin En hesitated again. As if she saw the hesitation on Lin En's face, Irina took the initiative to ask, however, I will have more than a week of free time after August 20th. I wonder if you will be free then? Hearing this, Lin En's eyes lit up, and he quickly said, of course. The time I spend consulting the master will not exceed half a month, which means I will return to the UK to rest after mid-August. Irina's eyebrows were curved, and she smiled very happily. Then, let's make an appointment to meet on August 20th, okay? Lin En nodded without hesitation and said, no problem. I think I'm willing to take you to witness the infinite prosperity of this world in that limited time. Chapter 393, Demon Sealing Boundary. As the sun sets, the Hogwarts Express arrives at King's Cross Station. After getting off the train, Lin, with the help of the house elf Gale, apparated back to Rogue Castle. Mom, I'm back. Lin greeted her mother Rowena as soon as she entered the living room on the first floor of the castle. Rowena looked at her child with a bit of brilliance in her eyes. She had read all the news published in the Daily Prophet these days. She couldn't imagine that her child, a little wizard who was only 15 years old and not yet an adult, was already a demon-level wizard who could change the world with a wave of his hand. Although her child was strong enough, Rowena still looked at Lin with a bit of worry in her eyes. She understood that Lin's strength was a good thing, but it also meant that Lin would inevitably be involved in more turmoil, which was something she didn't want to see. As a mother, she only hoped that her child could spend his life in peace, instead of running between life and death every day. But she also understood that after Lin En became a Demon King level wizard and fought against Voldemort, these things were inevitable. As a mother, all she could do was to support her child wholeheartedly. Not to mention how much help she could provide him. At least she couldn't hold him back. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Rowena stood up and hugged Lin En, who was coming towards her. After gently hugging her mother, Lin En let go of her hand, took out 5 silver cubes that shone with metallic luster from his pocket, and handed them to Rowena. Under Rowena's puzzled gaze, Lin explained, although Rogue Castle is protected by the Fidelius charm, it is impossible for Voldemort to find this place, but we cannot help but make any preparations. These are the magic sealing barriers that I spent a month refining. When you inject magic power into this block, it will be activated and automatically unfold into a hemispherical magic sealing barrier with a radius of 100 meters. This magic sealing barrier is developed by me, based on Teacher Green's magic proof staff. Compared with Teacher's magic proof staff, its biggest advantage is that it is also effective for Demon King level wizards. This also means that, even if Voldemort enters the range of the magic sealing barrier, all his magic power will be suppressed, and he will become an ordinary person who has lost his magic. However, the magic enhanced body of a Demon King level wizard will not be suppressed, which means that, if Voldemort wants to leave, he can also escape from the range of the magic sealing barrier within a few breaths. Therefore, I have never regarded it as a control type or chemical equipment, but a life-saving talisman that must be used in order to survive. Lin said in a deep voice. Unlike the invisible power of the magic forbidden staff, which can spread far in all directions, the magic sealing barrier he created is only a 100-meter radius. This means that, even if Lin En suppressed Voldemort's magic power and then took out the Desert Eagle to try to shoot him, Voldemort would definitely have time to escape from the range of the magic sealing barrier before being killed, relying on his body strengthened by the magic power of the Demon King. This magic sealing barrier is probably an extremely important strategic weapon in the eyes of anyone in the magic world today, but in Lin En's eyes, it is just a semi-finished product under research. In Lin En's mind, the most powerful alchemical creation carrying the power of magic forbidden should have the function of distinguishing between enemies and friends, just like his magic forbidden fire, so that the power of magic forbidden can be used more thoroughly. Rowena took over the 5 silver cubes that shone with metallic luster, and she was surprised by the huge power contained in these small cubes. But soon, Rowena laughed again. She knew that Lin En would not leave her a way out. Since she had the magic barrier, Lin En must have the same magic barrier in her hand. In this way, her child's safety is a little bit more. After visiting his mother and handing her the life-saving talisman that he had spent a month researching and refining, Lin En returned to his room and packed up the luggage he needed to carry for the trip to France. Lin En rested in the royal castle and accompanied his mother for 2 days. Then he activated the illegal cross-border door key made by Irina in his hand and teleported to the door of Green's home in the French magic world. Teacher Green. After knocking on the door and seeing Green in the room, Lin En smiled and greeted. Oh, Green gave his student a warm hug, and he said happily, Lin En. Looking at Lin En, who is now taller than himself, Green couldn't help but sigh a few times. When he accepted Lin En as his disciple, Lin En was still a small one. Unexpectedly, in just 4 years, Lin En has grown to a point that even he can't catch up with. Yes, he has seen all the contents of the Prophet daily this year. A 15-year-old Demon King level wizard. It's incredible. Green stared into Lin En's eyes with a smile on his lips and asked, I think your improvement this school year should not only be your magic level, right? Lin En also had a smile on his face, and he said, of course, Mr. Green. Green held his chin with his hand, and he thought, well, let me think about it. What should I test you on? Just when Green wanted to ask a question, Lin En suddenly said, Mr. Green, I guess you have a Glock in the right pocket of your pants, and it is the kind that has been enchanted with alchemical magic arrays. The bullets are engraved with alchemical magic arrays with main attributes such as sharp, explosion, tear, strengthening, etc. Am I right? Hearing this, Green was shocked at first, and he looked at Lin En in disbelief. But soon, Green seemed to have thought of something, and he asked, time loop array? Lin En smiled and nodded. Just as Green said, the reason why Lin En was able to know the location of the firearm hidden on Green's body and the alchemical array engraved on the bullet was because Lin En had set up the time loop array as soon as he entered the house, and in the previous cycle, he personally asked Green about the location of the firearm and the properties of the alchemical array. Lin En snapped his left hand in the air, and a familiar memory suddenly appeared in Green's mind. That was the memory of Lin En asking him about the location of the Glock pistol and the alchemical array engraved on the bullet. Chapter 394 Contract Magic. After receiving this memory that belonged to him, Green asked excitedly, you can set up a time loop array without alerting me. I guess the time loop array you set up is based on the improved blueprint I gave you, right? But I'm still a little curious, how did you omit the alchemical materials needed for the improved time loop array? Lin En smiled and waved his hand, and alchemical materials arranged according to a specific pattern suddenly appeared in every corner of the living room. The moment I threw these alchemical materials, I cast the illusion spell on them, and the same is true for the Sands of Time. The Demon King level illusion spell can completely conceal the magic fluctuations in ordinary alchemical materials and even the Sands of Time, which is why you couldn't find them. Lin En explained to Green. Hearing this, Green suddenly realized that with the mastery of magic power by the Demon King level wizard, Lin En could cast an undetectable illusion spell on any item in this room in an instant, and set up hundreds of alchemical arrays. Demon King level wizards, how enviable. Green couldn't help thinking in his heart. Green sighed and said, it seems that I have nothing to teach you in the field of alchemy. The time loop array you refined is much stronger than mine. Hearing Green's words, Lin En hurriedly said, no, teacher, I still have a lot to learn from you. What's more, my skills in refining the time loop array are not better than yours. It's just that I can do things that people can't do with the magic power of the Demon King level. Green laughed dumbly. How could he not understand what Lin En said? Whether it is to put the illusion spell on the object at the moment of throwing it, or the power of the illusion spell that can cover the fluctuation of the time power of the Sand of Time, it is impossible for wizards who have not reached the Demon King level to do it. If we only talk about Lin En's level of alchemy, then Lin En is naturally not as good as him. But the scene that happened in front of Green before really made him sigh. According to the discussion between your master and I, you will continue to study with me in July, and I will take you to see your master in August, and he will make your training plan for August, Green said to Lin En with a serious face. Hearing this, Lin En also restrained the smile on his face. He nodded vigorously and said, it's up to the teacher and master. Green didn't say much. He put one hand on Lin En's shoulder and knocked on the door handle of the room with the other hand. The next moment, the two came to the training ground hidden in this inconspicuous house. Green said, this year I plan to teach you not alchemy, but a kind of magic closely related to alchemy. Lin En hurriedly asked, what kind of magic? Green said in a deep voice, contract magic. It includes extremely advanced contract magic such as unbreakable oath, loyalty spell and blood alliance, as well as ordinary contract magic such as the contract of the magic company. The reason why I say that contract magic is closely related to alchemy is that contract magic can be integrated into the alchemy array and become a part of the alchemy array. Correspondingly, the alchemy array can also be integrated into the carrier of contract magic and work together with it. As he said, Green threw a thick book to Lin En. The book was a foot thick, and it was the thickest book Lin En had ever seen. Green said calmly, this book records all the common contract magics in the magic world so far. There is nothing to teach you about these contract magics. You can learn them by yourself when you have time. However, I hope you can master them before August. Lin En's hands sank as he held the book. After hearing Green's words, the corners of his mouth twitched wildly. In 1 month, he mastered the contract magic in this 1-foot thick book. This is simply not treating him as a human being. Even if he has outstanding learning and memory abilities, and the level of a Demon King level wizard has strengthened his abilities in these two aspects, what does a 1-foot thick book mean? Exclamation mark. This is thicker than the textbooks of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry for 7 years combined. Green didn't care about Lin En's twitching mouth and the crazy resistance in his eyes. He continued, in July, I will only teach in the morning every day, and the afternoons and evenings are your free study time. With your level of a Demon Lord level wizard, I believe this time is enough. And during the time I teach, I plan to teach you only the 5 most advanced types of contract magic. You should have heard of 3 of them. They are the most powerful unbreakable vow, the Fidelius charm often used by civilian wizards in the Wizarding War, and the blood covenant made between the former Dark Lord Grindelwald and Dumbledore. It is said that there are 5 advanced contract magic, but in fact there should be only 4. After all, although the unbreakable vow is the most powerful contract magic in the magic world, its casting is too simple and too childish. It is so simple that even a teenage wizard can cast it easily after understanding its specific process. Green said. Lin nodded slightly. Just as Green said, even without any formal learning, he and Irina still learned how to cast the unbreakable vow. As early as a year ago, he had signed the unbreakable vow with Iwin under the witness of Irina. Even when Ron was 5 years old, Fred and George, who were only 7 years old and far from the age requirement to enter Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, almost made Ron sign the unbreakable vow. Of course, Fred and George's end was also very miserable. Both of their butts were beaten by Mrs. Weirlie. Green continued, in order from easy to difficult, I plan to let you learn the means of arranging the Fidelius charm within 3 days, and your practice object will be this house. The Fidelius charm can be cancelled by the caster, but few people do so. This is why Green let Lin use this house as a practice object, without worrying that Lin would never be able to enter this house again, because he became a secret keeper. Lin En nodded again, listening to Green's explanation of the theoretical knowledge of the Fidelius charm. Green smiled and said, I don't think I need to say much about the introduction of the Fidelius charm. It is mentioned in almost every basic magic textbook. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets. Chapter 395, Loyalty Curse. The Fidelius charm is a magic that hides a person's secret forever in the soul of a living person. The secret is hidden in the heart of the chosen person, the secret keeper, so it will never be discovered unless the secret keeper reveals it. As long as the secret keeper does not reveal it, even if the thief puts his nose against the glass of their living room, he will not see them. Green simply repeated the introduction of the Fidelius charm recorded in various books, and then he explained the spell and casting techniques of the Fidelius charm. Since the object of the practice of the Fidelius charm is Green's house, Green did not continue to teach in this training ground, but took Lin En outside the house. Confuse the audience. Green gently waved the wand in his hand and cast the confusion charm around, so that passers-by around would ignore their strange behavior. Green looked at Lin and said calmly, the Fidelius charm is to hide a secret, such as the coordinates of a house, in the heart of a living person forever. But just like a person cannot enter his own heart, the secret keeper cannot enter the place protected by the Fidelius charm he kept. This means that, if you still want to return to your home, the secret keeper of the Fidelius charm you cast for your home must be someone you can fully trust, not yourself. Of course, you don't have this worry. After all, Dumbledore is the secret keeper of Rowell Castle. Green smiled and said. After that, Green signaled Lin to cast the Fidelius charm on the house according to the technique he had mentioned before. Lin En did not cast the spell immediately, but asked in confusion, Teacher, if the secret keeper extracts the memory of the hidden secret from his mind, then the secret hidden by the secret keeper will never be known by anyone, right? Hearing this, Green smiled and said, it's not that simple. If it was really as you said, there wouldn't be so many families protected by the Fidelius charm during the Wizarding War, and they would not be destroyed because of the betrayal of the secret keeper. Hearing Green's words, Lin En became even more confused. But soon, Green explained to him, although the Fidelius charm recorded in those popular magic books is only the most basic introduction, it also contains many of the core principles of the Fidelius charm. Lin En, I received your letter before. You invented an alchemical product called Cloud Synchronization Memory Bottle a few months ago, right? Lin En nodded slightly. So, Green continued, just like your Cloud Synchronization Memory Bottle, I just said that the Fidelius spell uses magic to hide secrets in a person's heart, not in his mind. This means that, even if the memory stored in the brain is extracted, the secret protected by the secret keeper will be automatically backed up in his heart, and after his memory is extracted, the relevant memory will be restored as soon as possible. Lin En finally realized it. The brain is not where the Fidelius spell stores secrets. Even if the memory in the brain is destroyed, it will not affect the secret keeper's protection of the secret. If you want to destroy this secret, the only way is to destroy the heart of the secret keeper, but that means the death of the secret keeper. According to the judgment of the Fidelius spell, if the secret keeper dies, then all those who know the secret will become the new secret keeper, and if there is no other person who knows the secret, then the Fidelius spell will be lifted. It is this judgment that makes it impossible for the secret protected by the Fidelius spell to become a secret forever. Since it is a secret, there will always be a day when it will be discovered, and the secret of the Fidelius spell will not be an exception. After learning about the storage principle of the secrets protected by the Fidelius charm, Lin En began to think about other uses of the Fidelius charm. The Fidelius charm can protect not only a place, but also other things. So, if the secret keeper casts the Fidelius charm on all his memories, and the secret keeper is forcibly extracted or destroyed for some irresistible reason, can the secret keeper restore his memory by backing up the secret of the Fidelius charm in his heart? Exclamation mark. Just like Barty Jr., whose memory was extracted by Dumbledore and Irina that day, if Barty Jr. protected his memory with the Fidelius charm, then after Dumbledore and Irina extracted his memory, can he restore his memory based on this? Exclamation mark. Thinking so, Lin En told Green his idea. After listening to Lin En's wonderful idea, Green smiled and shook his head. Green said, that's impossible, Lin. Maybe you can store a place, a treasure, or an event in your heart, but you can't store your complete memory. Everyone's heart has a capacity limit, Lin, and the coordinates of a house are the closest to this capacity limit. This is why most people are willing to keep the coordinates of the house as the confidential object of the Fidelius charm. Seeing that Lin seemed a little puzzled, Green continued, take the muggle computer as an example. Suppose the computer's memory capacity is 10 megabytes, and the coordinates of a house need to occupy 9.9 megabytes of memory. Then a person's entire memory needs to occupy 1000 megabytes of memory. This exceeds the upper limit of the computer's memory capacity, so the computer cannot store it. With Green's vivid description, Lin finally understood why no one had ever kept their memories as a secret and protected by the Fidelius charm. Hiding the coordinates of a house with the Fidelius charm can maximize the utilization rate of the Fidelius charm, which is why almost all the hidden objects of the Fidelius charm in the past 100 years are the coordinates of the house. After figuring out all this, his eyes towards the green house in front of him became clear. Lin En gently waved the wand in his hand and chanted an obscure spell. A strange magic power cut the coordinates of the green house from this world and hid it in Lin En's heart. Lin En could clearly feel that after he became the keeper of the greenhouse's secret, every time he told the coordinates of this place to someone, it was equivalent to copying a copy of the coordinates from his heart and returning it to the world. This feeling reached its peak when he told Green the coordinates of the greenhouse again and let Green see his house again. Chapter 396, Method of Dissolving the Blood Alliance. Success. After successfully casting the Fidelius charm on Green's heart, Lin En smiled and said to Green. He waved his wand again, pulling the secret out of his heart, returning it to the world, and cancelling the Fidelius charm that protected Green's heart. Green nodded slightly and said, "In my original plan, you would learn the Fidelius charm tomorrow, but I still underestimated you. In the next 2 days, I will not continue to teach you. You can use this house to practice the Fidelius charm repeatedly, and don't forget the contract magic book I gave you." Lin En quickly agreed. Lin En knew in his heart that this was not because Green underestimated himself. If he was still himself a year ago, then even if he had a superior magic talent and a high enough understanding, he would probably need a day of practice to successfully release the Fidelius charm. And the reason why he was able to succeed in one go was ultimately because of his level as a Demon King level wizard. Demon King level wizards are a qualitative leap. This realm of magic can bring more than just an improvement in strength. Now Lin En's understanding of magic, his perception of magic, and even his exploration of the essence of spells all benefit from the realm of the Demon King. In the next 2 days, Lin En continued to repeatedly cast and cancel the Fidelius charm on Green's heart in the morning, improving his proficiency in the Fidelius charm. In the afternoon and evening, he stayed in the room that Green arranged for him, concentrating on reading books that recorded various contract magics, and tried to practice them one by one on parchment. Soon, time came to the 3rd day, when Lin En finished breakfast and was teleported to the training ground through the alchemy array on the bedroom door handle. Green had been waiting here for a long time. After seeing Lin En appear, Green came over and said calmly, "The practice of the loyalty spell will come to an end today. Now, I plan to teach you another advanced contract magic, that is the Blood Covenant." Hearing the word Blood Covenant, Lin En's mind was immediately shocked, and he looked at Green more attentively. Green said calmly, "Blood Covenant is a kind of contract magic that is difficult to reverse and violate. I don't ask you to really practice it. Therefore, I only want you to fully master its theoretical knowledge, spells and casting techniques to ensure that you can successfully and perfectly cast it when necessary, and will not fail due to some minor mistakes, causing more serious consequences." Lin En nodded solemnly. He was also clear about the effectiveness of the Blood Covenant. Just like an unbreakable oath, few people are willing to make a blood covenant with others for no reason. Once 2 wizards have signed a blood pact, they cannot fight each other, and they cannot even become hostile to each other. Once one wizard wants to violate the blood pact and become hostile to the other, the blood pact will make the violating party feel so painful that they can't even hold their wands. Teacher, you just said that the blood pact is difficult to reverse and difficult to violate, not irreversible and inviolable. Does that mean there is a way to break the blood pact? Lin En seemed to have thought of something, and he suddenly asked. If Lin En remembered correctly, the blood pact signed by Dumbledore and Grindelwald was later broken, so doesn't this mean that there is some reliable way to break the blood pact? Exclamation mark. Green nodded gently and said, "Yes, the blood pact made by the former Dark Lord Grindelwald and Dumbledore was successfully broken. Otherwise, Dumbledore would not have been able to defeat Grindelwald, let alone restore peace to the wizarding world. To break the blood pact, you have to make the blood pact schizophrenic. In simple terms, when the existence of the blood pact has no practical meaning, it is broken, such as when the two people who made the blood pact confronted each other without confrontation. Green said so. Lin En asked, confronted without confrontation? What does that mean? Green raised his hand and interrupted Lin En's question. Green explained, before we figure this out, we must first understand what the irresistibility of the blood covenant means. Will the spell against the other party be ineffective or deflected? Or will it be like having their mouth sealed and unable to recite the spell against it? In fact, as long as the party that violates the blood covenant has the idea of resistance, they will be punished by the blood covenant. Therefore, the irresistibility of the blood covenant means that the idea of resistance cannot arise. From this point of view, the blood covenant is more like a lover with his own personality, and its only idea is, if you want to betray me, then I will punish you. And why is it said that the blood covenant should be schizophrenic? During the Grindelwald period, Grindelwald used the killing curse on a descendant of the Dumbledore family, but Dumbledore protected him with other spells. I used to be puzzled by this, and an old friend of mine, Newt Scamander, told me that he also had such doubts. When he asked Dumbledore this question in person, Dumbledore said that they did not want to fight, but Grindelwald sought to kill, while Dumbledore sought to protect. This also means that the confrontation actually happened without the idea of confrontation. There was no confrontation psychologically, but there was confrontation in behavior. This is what muggles call psychology, which is inconsistency between knowledge, emotion, will and action, and is also the main symptom of what muggles call schizophrenia. When a person is unable to be consistent with himself, he will feel pain, and may even have thoughts of self-destruction. The same is true for the Blood Alliance. Under the pain of being unable to be consistent with himself, it cannot find the meaning of its existence, so it breaks. Yes, the Blood Alliance made by the former Dark Lord Grindelwald and Dumbledore was so childish and unreasonable that it was dissolved. And this is also the only way that people generally believe to dissolve or destroy the Blood Alliance. Green said in a deep voice. Lin listened, his face full of surprise. This method of dissolving the Blood Alliance was simply incredible to him, and he was a little surprised that Green knew this information. It seems that the magic world seems to be closed and disconnected, but in fact it is closely connected. Especially those who hold powerful power, whether they are high-ranking ministers of magic in various countries, Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel, who are demon-level wizards, Green, a famous alchemist who masters advanced alchemy, Newt Scamander, a master of magical animals, and some wizards who have great ability or voice in their respective fields. If you investigate carefully, then people will be surprised to find that these people know each other. Not to mention how good the relationship is, at least it will be a nodding acquaintance. Chapter 397 Irina's Vacation and the Replica Newt Suitcase. It has to be said that, even though Lin En had watched the Fantastic Beasts movies in his previous life, he still found it a bit incredible after learning from Green how to dissolve the Blood Covenant. After Green used the Blood Covenant between Dumbledore and Grindelwald as an example to explain how to dissolve the Blood Covenant, he taught Lin En the core principles, spells, and various techniques for making a Blood Covenant. Originally, Lin En was still very unfamiliar with the advanced contract magic of the Blood Covenant. He only knew that the Blood Covenant was a vague concept of a special contract magic that proved the feelings of both parties and made it impossible for the two parties to confront each other. From the example of the Blood Covenant between Dumbledore and Grindelwald, he figured out that the Blood Covenant was not just a contract, but also a magical product with its own personality that could make simple thoughts and judgments. In the next 2 days, Lin En reviewed the knowledge about the Blood Covenant. As for the remaining 20 days of July, Lin En followed Green to learn the remaining 2 contract magics that were more advanced than the Unbreakable Oath, the Fidelity Spell, and the Blood Covenant. Time goes back to the end of June. After separating from Lin at King's Cross Station, Irina walked out of the platform with other young wizards. At this time, Irina's father Rigor Lowell and mother Carolina Lowell were waiting for her in a car. Irina ran out of the platform happily, opened the door of the back seat of the car, got in, looked at her parents in the driver's seat and the co-pilot seat, and said in a tender voice, "Dad, Mom." Hearing his daughter's call, Igor smiled and looked at Irina through the rearview mirror and asked, "How is this semester?" Are you studying well? Irina did not tell her parents about Voldemort's resurrection. Her parents were ordinary people. Suddenly telling her parents this terrifying information would only make her parents worried. Irina just said crisply, "Very good. I have mastered a lot of new magic, and even the skills of magic duel have been greatly honed." Most of the new magic that Irina mentioned were new application techniques of the ice god, not new spells. After all, Irina had already mastered the spells commonly used in the magic world in the first 2 years of her enrollment at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. She even learned the dark magic and the 3 unforgivable curses in her 3rd year. As for honing her magic duel skills, it was Irina's duel with the Death Eaters on the night of the Quidditch World Cup and in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village. After killing so many Death Eaters, her magic duel skills naturally improved. Although Irina concealed many things, everything she told was strictly true. Hearing this, Igor just nodded gently. As Irina's father, he could naturally see what Irina was hiding from them, but he didn't want to break the casserole to ask the truth. He understood that, if Irina was willing to tell him, then she would naturally tell him. If Irina was unwilling to tell him, then even if he asked further, he would not get the answer he wanted. At this time, Carolina, the mother sitting in the passenger seat, turned her head and looked at Irina. Her eyes were full of tenderness, but also a little worried. She asked, "Irina, are you going to study with your teacher in the magic world this summer?" Irina nodded slightly, and her eyes were also full of worries about the future. She said softly, "Yes. I'm still too weak in the magic world. The future magic world will not be too stable. If I want to protect you, I must have enough power." Until this time, Carolina also realized that Irina's words were reserved. "I'm afraid that the not too stable in her daughter's mouth is not as easy as she said." Igor and Carolina looked at each other, but they tacitly did not speak. Igor stepped on the accelerator and started the car towards their home. Irina leaned on the soft backrest installed in the car, turned her head, and looked at the scenery that kept passing by outside the window. She and Newt agreed to meet in 3 days, which means that she still has 3 days to accompany her family. During these 3 days, Irina was like an ordinary girl, accompanying her parents to go shopping, watch movies and go to the park, leaving all her worries behind. Soon, the 4th day arrived. After enjoying the sandwiches made by her mother, Caroline, as breakfast, Irina put on her small backpack with all her luggage, which was cast with the traceless stretching spell, and took out the teacup-shaped door key that was already emitting a faint glow from her pocket. "I'm leaving first. I'll be back in mid-August." Irina waved goodbye to her parents on the other side of the dining table. As her voice fell, the light emitted by the door key in her hand also reached its peak, and her body twisted and disappeared on the spot. At the same time, in the lobby on the 1st floor of the villa where Newt was living, a white light lit up in the center of the hall, and Irina's figure also twisted and appeared here. Having traveled by portkey many times, she had already adapted to the dizziness brought by traveling by portkey. She landed steadily with both feet and waved to Newt, who was sitting on the sofa with a smile, saying, "Good morning, teacher." Newt nodded slightly to Irina, and he stood up and said, "Without further delay, let's start practicing the traceless stretch spell. Before July 15th, I need you to use the traceless stretch spell to enlarge the space inside a box to a space equivalent to the small world inside the special suitcase I gave you." Irina nodded. Although making a Newt brand suitcase requires not only the effect of the traceless stretch spell, but also the combination of alchemy to maintain the balance and operation of a small world. Otherwise, if there is enough space, but no carrier to carry it, then no matter how large the space is, it will be shattered due to the incompleteness and disorder of its rules. However, if it is only to enlarge the space equivalent to the small world inside the Newt brand suitcase without consolidating it, Irina is not far from this step. Newt smiled and said, "If I remember correctly, your boyfriend should be called Lin En, right? His teacher is the famous French alchemist Wallace Green, an old friend of mine. Perhaps you can try to cooperate with Lin. You provide the space of the traceless extension spell, and he provides the alchemy. Maybe you can replicate my special suitcase." Chapter 398 Trillion Space Expansion Ratio. Hearing Newt's words, Irina's face showed a bit of expectation, and she couldn't help but daydream. She and Lin created a small world of their own in an unknown suitcase or something like that. It seems quite romantic to say that! Exclamation mark. Seeing Irina like this, Newt himself was surprised. He said unexpectedly, "Irina, you and Lin are already together?" Newt had previously called Lin Irina's little boyfriend just a joke, but looking at Irina's reaction, could it be that he really hit the mark? Irina's pretty face blushed slightly. She nodded gently and said, "Well, before the Christmas ball, we were together." Newt smiled and said, "Then I wish you all the best." "Well, I won't say much about the digression. Let me see how far you can go with the traceless stretching spell now." As Newt spoke, he threw a wooden box to Irina. Irina raised her hand to catch the wooden box, which was a cube-shaped wooden box with a side length of 20 centimeters. Newt said, "Release the traceless extension spell with all your strength to expand the space inside this wooden box." Irina did not hesitate. She raised her hand and pointed the tip of her wand at the wooden box in her hand. A strange magic power filled with spatial power surged from the tip of her wand and sank into the wooden box in her hand. Although the appearance of the wooden box did not seem to have changed, Newt, who was proficient in the traceless extension spell, could sense that the space inside the wooden box had undergone earth-shaking changes. After about half an hour, the expression on Irina's face gradually became more strenuous from the initial calm. A large amount of magic power surged out of her body, and the loss of magic power made her forehead covered with fine beads of sweat. After feeling that she had reached her limit, Irina stopped casting the traceless extension spell and handed the wooden box in her hand to Newt. Newt flicked his wand gently, and a light gate suddenly appeared in front of Newt and Irina, and the other side of the light gate was connected to the space inside the wooden box. "Come on, let's see how much the space inside this wooden box has expanded under the effect of your traceless extension spell." Newt smiled and made a please gesture to Irina, and then took the lead in entering the light gate. Irina followed closely behind, passing through the light gate and coming to another space. Irina looked around and found that the walls around her were all made of wood. Whether it was the four walls, the ceiling or the ground, they were all made of the most ordinary wood. And the material of this wood was exactly the same as the wooden box in Irina's hand before. Irina knew that she and Newt were in this wooden box. Under the effect of Irina's traceless extension spell, this wooden box could be said to have no end in sight. Irina's magic level and magic strength were the same as Lin En a few months ago, and she was only one step away from becoming a Demon King level wizard. With Newt's personal instruction, Irina's understanding of the traceless stretch spell was among the best in the entire British magic world. With the dual blessing of her understanding of the traceless stretch spell and the strength of her magic, the space she could expand with the traceless stretch spell was very impressive. Well, the shape of the space has not changed. It is still square. The side length of the space inside the wooden box has expanded to 1 kilometer, and the space expansion multiplier is 125 billion. Not bad, not bad. Newt nodded with satisfaction. Last summer, when Irina cast the traceless stretch spell, the space expansion multiplier she could achieve was only 10 billion, but now it has reached 125 billion. Such a leap forward made Newt very satisfied. The space expansion multiplier refers to the ratio of the space after the traceless stretch spell is cast to the space volume before the spell is cast, and the space expansion multiplier of the small world and the Newt brand suitcase is trillions. In other words, Irina needs to increase the space expansion multiplier of her traceless stretch spell to trillions in the next 2 weeks. Irina looked at Newt for help and said, "Teacher, according to the strength of my magic, the limit of what I can do is here. The size of the space that can be expanded by the traceless extension spell is closely related to the caster's understanding of the traceless extension spell and the strength of the caster's magic. If Irina's understanding of the traceless extension spell remains unchanged, she wants to achieve 1 trillion times of space expansion. Perhaps the only way is to advance to the Demon King level wizard like Lin En, and use the almost endless magic power of the Demon King level wizard to forcibly build up a large enough space." However, Lin En went through such a thrilling process, where he could die at any time, and he was able to break through to the Demon King level wizard before he reached adulthood. And Irina can't just sit in Newt's villa and do nothing, and break through to the Demon King level wizard before July 15th, just like eating and drinking water? Exclamation mark. Since the way to forcibly build up a huge space with the magic power of the Demon King level wizard is not feasible, then Irina's only way is to ask Newt for help. Relying on the theoretical knowledge Newt imparted to her, she improved her understanding of the essence of the traceless stretch spell, so as to maximize the conversion rate of her magic power and spatial power, and expand a larger space with less magic power consumption. Newt is not a Demon King level wizard, but he can do many things that only Demon King level wizards can do, which naturally relies on Newt's understanding of the essence of these spells. Feeling Irina's gaze, Newt naturally knew what Irina wanted to express. He shrugged his shoulders and chuckled and said, "Don't worry, since you are my only disciple, I will naturally not hold back on you. In these 2 weeks, I will pass on my full understanding of the traceless stretch spell and my mantle to you. I believe that after this summer vacation, you will become the wizard who is most proficient in the traceless stretch spell in the entire magic world." Newt said so. Newt could feel that Irina was now closer to the Demon King level wizard than he was. In this way, once Irina had a grasp of the same understanding of the traceless extension spell as him, then the traceless extension spell that Irina cast would definitely surpass him. Thinking of this, Newt was not only not disappointed, but also sincerely happy for Irina. A buzzing sound sounded, and Newt's face suddenly became serious. He looked at Irina and said, "Hurry up and go back through the light gate. The space here has begun to become disordered. It may collapse and shatter at any time. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 399. Witness the prosperity of the magic world together. Before Newt finished speaking, Irina saw that the space in the distance was like a broken mirror, with fine cracks appearing. These cracks continued to expand and spread towards the direction of Newt and Irina. Seeing this scene, Irina did not hesitate to pull Newt's arm and headed towards the light gate from which they came. The space in the distance had begun to break, and pieces of space broke apart, revealing the bottomless void behind. If this broken space spread to the location where Newt and Irina were, then the two would be completely torn apart by the broken space. However, Newt still had a general understanding of how long this space could last. Even if Irina did not pull him back and walked back slowly, he would be able to leave the light gate before the space broke. But Irina did not think so. She only felt that she had walked around in front of the gate of hell. After stepping out of the light gate and returning to the living room, she turned her head to look at the completely shattered space on the other side of the light gate, and the light that dissipated with it, with a bit of shock in her eyes. She looked at Newt in confusion and fear, and asked, "Teacher, why does the same space collapse and disintegrate after expanding to a certain extent?" Newt explained, "You can think of the space with a traceless stretch spell as a rubber band that is constantly stretched. The rubber band can be stretched all the time, but after being stretched to a certain length, there will always be a moment when it breaks. The same is true for space, and the role played by alchemy in it is equivalent to increasing the density of the rubber band, so that the rubber band can be stretched longer and more stable, so as to maintain the stability of the space that has been expanded to 1,000,000,000,000 times. Newt said so, and he taught Irina his understanding of the traceless stretch spell without reservation. Rubber bands. Irina thought for a moment, her eyes suddenly lit up, and she said, "Then, teacher, can space be used in battle? Just like rubber bands can be used to whip people, and it hurts a lot." Hearing this, Newt was stunned. He had never thought about the traceless stretch spell in this aspect of battle. He just thought about it for a moment, and then smiled and said, "Magic is idealistic, Irina. Everything is possible in the magic world. Maybe in your hands, the traceless stretch spell can be developed for combat, but as far as the current magic world is concerned, the power of space has not yet been used in combat." Irina nodded slightly. She just proposed this idea. She didn't expect Newt to really teach her how to use the traceless stretch spell in battle. After all, if Newt really had this ability, I'm afraid that, just based on his understanding of the traceless stretch spell and the power of space, he would be enough to advance to the level of Demon King Wizard. For a wizard, there are several other ways to advance to the level of Demon King, besides Dumbledore, Grindelwald and Voldemort, who forcibly advanced to the level of Demon King with their own superb magic level and magic strength. For example, Voldemort, who was resurrected, forcibly advanced to the level of Demon King with anger, and Lin, who relied on his attainments in fire magic and the same anger, successfully advanced to the level of Demon King with this double blessing. From this point of view, the method of advancing to the level of Demon King also includes extremely high attainments in a certain field and extreme emotions in this idealistic magic world. The great alchemist Nickel Flamel was able to advance to the level of Demon King with his extremely high attainments in the field of alchemy. At this time, someone will ask, isn't alchemy and magic two systems? Why can Nickel Flamel be promoted to the level of Demon King in the magic system based on this? The question is, the magic world is idealistic. Lin En and Irina's mastery of fire magic and ice magic, respectively, are unprecedented and unparalleled in the entire magic world. However, their understanding of fire magic and ice magic, respectively, cannot allow them to advance to the level of Demon King wizards like Nicholas Flamel, relying on their extreme attainments in this field. Lin En and Irina's control over fire magic and ice magic, respectively, comes from their bloodline, not their understanding, which is why they cannot advance to the level of Demon King. At the same time, this also means that, unless Irina can raise her understanding of ice magic to the level of Nicholas Flamel's understanding of alchemy, she must experience the same dramatic emotional ups and downs as Lin En, or the crisis between life and death, before she can be promoted to the level of Demon King wizard with a double blessing. Irina stared at Newt's clear eyes, and she smiled and said, if I can really develop the role of space power in combat in the future, I will definitely tell you. Fill in your blind spots in the field of space, and help you advance to the Demon King level. Hearing the girl's sincere words, Newt smiled. He gently touched Irina's head, and said, I'm glad you have this heart. However, I'm already old, and the Demon King level is no longer that important to me. No, Irina shook her head. She said seriously, the Demon King level is still very useful. It can allow you, the teacher, to accompany us to witness the future prosperity of the magic world. A warm feeling flowed through Newt's heart, and he couldn't help looking forward to the future of the magic world. Achieving the Demon King level, and witnessing the future prosperity of the magic world. It's really tempting. Even Newt, who can be said to be selfless, was also very moved at this time. Especially when he recalled that his old friend Wallace and Green's teacher, the great alchemist Nickel Flamel, gave up the great journey of death and chose to stay in order to witness Len's growth and the future of the magic world. Even Nickel Flamel did this, so why couldn't he? If you want to develop the combat capabilities of the Traceless extension spell, it's not just talk. Come with me, increase your spatial expansion rate to 1,000,000,000 times, which is your first step forward. Newt put aside the distracting thoughts in his heart, smiled softly at Irina, and said. Irina nodded, and her eyes became more serious. In the next week or so, Newt dutifully taught Irina his understanding of the Traceless extension spell, and asked Irina to cast the Traceless extension spell again and again in front of him, pointing out Irina's shortcomings in the process. In this way, Irina's attainments in the Traceless extension spell improved rapidly. Chapter 400, The Ultimate Traceless Stretching Spell, Teaching of the Anywhere Door Key. In the past week, Irina had learned all about the Traceless Stretch spell from Newt, which made Irina's conversion rate of converting magic power into space power increase rapidly when she cast the Traceless Stretch spell. After Newt gave Irina the last lesson on the Traceless Stretch spell, Irina's original space expansion multiplier of 125 billion had increased to 800 billion. Now she was not far from the trillionth space expansion multiplier required by Newt, and every time she cast the Traceless Stretch spell, her space expansion multiplier would be significantly improved compared to the previous time. Looking at Irina's steadily increasing space expansion multiplier, Newt was sure that after Irina thoroughly digested the knowledge he taught, Irina's space expansion multiplier of the Traceless Stretch spell would definitely reach trillion. Irina did not disappoint Newt's expectations. On the night of July 14th, Irina cast the Traceless Stretch spell on the wooden box again under Newt's gaze. As the space inside the wooden box continued to expand and extend, Irina's magic power was also rapidly consumed. But compared to 2 weeks ago, every time Irina consumed a bit of magic power, the power converted to expand the space inside the wooden box would be several times more. After Irina's magic power was almost exhausted, and she stopped casting spells, Newt waved his wand again to summon the light gate. However, the two did not walk into the light gate like the first time, but stood outside the light gate and looked inside. Yes, the space expansion rate here has reached 1 trillion. If the carrier of your traceless extension spell is a suitcase, you can create a space equal to the size of my small world inside the box. Newt's head passed through the light gate, looked around the space inside the wooden box, and then quickly retracted his head. He said to Irina with satisfaction, compared with the space expansion rate of 125 billion 2 weeks ago, the space expansion rate of 1 trillion now appears in the space inside the wooden box, which will only be more unstable and easier to fall apart. Therefore, Newt would never dare to risk his life and enter this space that could collapse completely at any time. Otherwise, with the speed of the unstable space with the trillion space expansion rate, he might not be able to escape from the light gate in time and be completely torn apart by the broken space. Looking at the constantly breaking space on the other side through the light gate, Irina seemed to have some insights. If the broken space can tear the human body apart, then breaking the space where the enemy is located can directly tear the enemy apart from the air! Exclamation mark. After Irina successfully cast the traceless spell with a trillion space expansion rate, Newt stopped her training on the traceless stretching spell. Today, Irina has reached the extreme in her understanding and mastery of the traceless stretching spell. Before she is promoted to the Demon King level wizard, it is probably difficult for her to improve in the traceless stretching spell. Too much is as bad as too little. Instead of letting Irina waste her energy on the traceless stretching spell, it is better to teach her more of what she has learned throughout her life. I'll give you a day to rest and take care of the magical animals in your suitcase. On July 16th, we will continue to learn how to make portkeys, Newt said to Irina. Irina was naturally happy to hear this. Although she was eager to improve her own strength, everything needed a combination of work and rest. Even Lin En, who was obsessed with alchemy experiments all day, would leave some time for herself to relax, not to mention Irina, who was more playful! Exclamation mark. Irina immediately got into her suitcase and fed the magical animal food that Newt had prepared for her to the little guys living in different areas, including the tree-guarding Botrickle King and her tribe, Zyrobeo the Sniff, Zyrojyalong and Zyrozyke, the little curled-winged demon, Tim the Thunderbird, the invisible beast Silver Shining, the bird snake Ruai, 6 moon crazy beasts and 6 bull escaping birds. After feeding these little guys, Irina played with the clingy moon beast, the green lady, the little winged demon and Tim for a while. It was not until the night of July 15th that she came out of the suitcase with a sense of satisfaction. Irina slept soundly in the room that Tina arranged for her. It was not until the next day, when the sun was high, that Irina got up with sleepy eyes. Newt rarely woke her up, but let her wake up naturally. After breakfast, he began to teach her how to use the door key. Take these 9 objects and make them into trigger door keys, charging door keys, and timed door keys. The door key types are ordinary door keys, cross-border door keys and arbitrary door keys. Let me see your current level. Newt handed 9 emerald green teacups of the same size to Irina and said so. Irina nodded. She raised one of the emerald green teacups, gently touched the teacup with her wand, and whispered, "Mentis." A white light flashed, and the inside of the teacup suddenly became filled with a faint magical fluctuation. This is an ordinary trigger type door key, and the destination is the corridor on the 2nd floor of the villa. Irina used magic to isolate the teacup from her hand, and returned it to Newt. Newt took the door key, and the next moment, his figure twisted and disappeared from the spot. But in less than a second, Newt apparated back to Irina. After that, Irina made the rechargeable door key and timed door key among ordinary door keys, as well as the trigger door key, rechargeable door key, and timed door key among cross-border door keys. For the same teleportation distance, whether it is a trigger type door key that is triggered upon contact, A charging door key that is automatically triggered after injecting magic power, or a timed door key that is automatically triggered when reaching a specified time node. Irina's time and magic power are almost the same. It takes Irina about 5 seconds to make an ordinary door key, but it takes nearly 5 minutes to make a cross-border door key. At this time, Irina only has 3 emerald green teacups left. Mentus. Irina chanted the spell to an emerald green teacup again. This time, she planned to make a trigger-type arbitrary door key. The destination of the arbitrary door key is not determined by her, the maker of the door key, but by the user of the door key. This concept of the operation of the door key is the first time in the entire magic world, since the production of an arbitrary door key requires considering the possibility of a large number of destination coordinates. The time it takes Irina to make an arbitrary door key is much longer than that of a cross-border door key. After more than half an hour, the trigger-type portal key was finally completed. It lay quietly on the coffee table between Irina and Newt. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.